Wow, that is fun. Welcome, everybody. We are here for the City of Palatka Budget Workshop on August 17th, 2023, and I'm calling the meeting to order. We're going to start with the invocation. Pastor Mulberry, please.
Yes, ma'am. Father, we thank you once again for this day. We give you praise and glory for your kindness and your goodness. We pray, God, that you will bless our coming together this time to do business as the budget is being presented. Pray for the wisdom that's necessary to carry it out. The name of Jesus, that which is necessary to move this city forward. God, we pray for Commissioner Tammy, Commissioner, hallelujah, Campbell on this day, that you would touch them, God, their physical challenges. We ask for your divine covering and blessing to be upon them. Keep them, God, I pray. Touch every one of us, and we give you praise for all that you're doing and what you're going to do. We honor you today in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Commissioner Brown, can you lead us in pledge, please?
Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Roll call, Ms. Krantz, please.
Thank you. Commissioner Tammy McCaskill is an excused absence for the record. Commissioner Justin Campbell
I'm present.
is present for the record. Commissioner Will Jones,
I'm present.
Commissioner Rufus Borum,
Present.
Mayor Robbie Correa.
Present.
We do have a quorum here in the chambers, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Could you please read the special call workshop notice?
Yes. The commissioners, Tammy McCaskill, Will Jones, Rufus Borum, and Justin Campbell. You're notified of special called workshops of the Palatka City Commission are hereby called to be held at City Hall, 201 North Second Street, Palatka, Florida, July 20th, July 21st, August 17th, and August 18th. Please govern yourselves accordingly. Roberta M. Correa, Mayor.
Thank you. We're going to open the floor to public comments. The yellow comment cards are right next to the doorway. Please keep your comments to 3 minutes and provide your name and address for the record. Is there anybody here for public comments? Seeing no one, we'll close public comments. Moving on to the agenda items, the budget presentation, Mr. Griffith.
Thank you, Mayor Correa. So the plan is to basically pick up where we left off. So the next presenter would be Mr. Cutright. Ms. Carty and I just kind of wanted to give you just an update as to where we stand right now. Before I turn it over to her, I will tell you that we've distributed 2 documents that we're kind of making changes to as we go through, based upon some of your recommendations and also deliberation with staff. We're trying to get down to a balanced budget. So with that said, I'll let Ms. Carty kind of give you an update as to where we are in that effort.
Okay, so good evening, commissioners, mayor, all that are here. So at this point, we've gone through we've met with all of the directors again. We've tried to identify items that we could perhaps lessen or forego for this fiscal year budget. I would say that we are getting very close to our target. At this point, it's a little bit more than about 1.8 million that we're looking at, possibly 1.5. And as of today, we're pretty close. So we're going to continue our efforts I also need to vet everything that I've done thus far, but we are getting very close to meeting the amount that we need with the recommendations that we heard from the diocese as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
So while Mr. Cutright's coming up to the podium, obviously, we understand you still have a significant amount of the budget to get through today. And based upon what you see, you may want to make some corrections with what's presented today and what was presented at an earlier date. So we're here to make those notations. Our hope is, if you still want to have your workshop tomorrow, is to be able to make some of these entries and adjustments and just present to you where we stand in total tomorrow afternoon. We may have some specific requests for direction if we still have a deficit or surplus. With that said, I'll turn it over to you, Mr. Cutright.
All right, Sunday. You gonna click it for me, Sunday? You want me to get the form?
I can click it for you if you want to do next slides up to you.
Okay, that'll work.
Okay.
Let me get caught up here. Coach Arch.
That's
Oh, three. You want, oh,
There.
okay. I got confidence in you. All right, okay. There you go, Coach Oss, Eddie Cutright, Community Affairs Director, 205 North Second Street, Palatka, Florida. All right, Coach Oss, the achievements that we have in 2022, 2023, over 30 special events, FY 2022, 2023, with approximately $45,000 to $50,000 in revenue brought in. The reopening of the St. John's River Center is going to be a major income revenue for us, and also just a light to the city of Palatka, because we have a chance to bring the volunteers back base that we had before we closed it. The volunteer staff has been really engaged. We have had a couple of meetings with them, and they're very energetic on getting on board when we open it up. Tentatively, we have a September 1 reopening date. We're waiting on our IT department to finish some things to make sure we got functionality and capabilities to work over there and still be on the same server with the city. Complete the repairs for the molding and stuff. That was a lengthy project, but it seemed to be holding. I'm gonna leave that part alone. Repairs to the roof and everything went well. We had over $22,000 in sponsorship and city events, second year of the Hippity Hoppity and River Boppity and Jingle Jam. We increased sponsorship. We increased the sponsorship amount from the 4th of July. It actually was a great turnout, and we had the mayor's next slide, I'm sorry. And we had the mayor's help challenge. It went real well. Everything was good. The notable operation changes that you'll see from 23 to 24, the continued reopening of the St. John River Center and volunteer staff and supplies, adding programs and events to the St. John River Center as far as starting back with the field trips with the schools and the youth program, participating in the conservatory events that aligns with the message of the St. John River, i.e. the Botched Follow, Keep Putting the Beautiful, and other things that we can come together with. Goals is to increase the sponsorship for existing events. Extend partnerships for additional programs and events, reach out to resources in the city and then try to bring veterans and things, food drives and stuff down to that area and help the community. Repairs and improvements for normal leased buildings. Next slide. Coach Red Board operating right now, we budget and that's $235,000. That actually, majority of that was the fixing of the roof and the repairing of the mold. So that's where that number came up for that. Since that is in place now, the operation budget should be at least $100,000 less, if not less than that. And that was the number that I based on what I had. You might have different numbers on your sheet. Operations for next year, repairs and improvements Larimer Arts Center, this is the Coach Arts itself, not the St. John's River no more, but Larimer Arts Center needs some renovations and things done. The Tillman House need a little renovation. Willa Cooper Building, Waterworks, train station, and Brunson Mulholland House. And we know Brunson Mulholland House is a major project in itself. Next slide. Current staffing and contracts, we have Courtney James as the coordinator over there, and Aaron Hills help out with some administrative stuff. Our contracts on service at the time of this slide when it was created was crucial cleaning. We have since then moved on from crucial cleaning. Future, what we're looking for one part-time employee, and that position will help with site rentals and offsetting site rentals and also cleaning. We used to have a position similar to that a couple of years ago before we went to the contractor, and it worked pretty well. Potential contract service is just having a landscaper comes on a regular maintenance time to kind of beautify the project. Next slide. Capital overlay and budget. As of right now, nothing. Next year, we're needing to tent the train depot. We're having some termite issues. I got 3 different quotes, and right now the average quote is around $10,700. So 11,000 is where I'm looking at asking for.
Eddie, do you mind if I add?
No, go ahead. Yep.
Been told by Aaron via text I need to speak into the mic, so try this. A couple things of note. The Bronson House, as you're all aware, needs substantial repairs. That is not in this budget. There is a pending grant application with the Division of Historical Resources. It is quite possible that the city will have to come up with some match funding to make that project happen. But at this time, we're not including it because we still have that DHR application pending. So just be aware, sometime next year, we'll be having a conversation about that. The Tillman House condition is about the same from what I've heard from Mr. Cutright and Mr. McMillan. A thought that you may want to consider is if Hammock Hall does close, that those proceeds could be directed back to the South TIF. Tillman House falls within the South TIF. And that is an eligible CRA expense. So if that is something of interest for the CRA board or the city commission in the future, you could find some funding there to make the necessary improvements to the Tillman House. If not, we will have to identify what the necessary scope is and cost probably in the next year and figure out how to address it.
I've had that as a suggestion as well, if we get to that point.
But I think Eddie and his staff have done a wonderful job. I definitely support bringing on the part-time cultural resource attendant, which helps with some of the custodial services at the rental facilities and recreation facilities. And with that said, we're here to answer any questions you have.
Okay, and that would hopefully increase the rental use if we have this position to have it. Some of these buildings I think are underutilized, and it would be great if we could increase the rental opportunities.
It would open up opportunities for have dual rentals in several
Okay.
different places of the city.
Great.
And then also, we had myself and Mr. City Manager here, we talked about some pricing changing for some of the rentals to kind of
Okay,
also increase the energy of people renting the facilities too.
great. Does
Just got a
anybody-
question on that.
I was gonna say, yeah, does
Want me
anybody
to
have a question?
elaborate?
Well, you go ahead.
No, I think I couldn't hit it. Go ahead.
What you got the Larimer, not Larimer, but the Tillman House and the Bronson. You said it had substantial improvement. When we say substantial, what does that look like, sound like from a number standpoint, just an estimate?
From a number standpoint, you'll see in the facilities presentation, some of that breakdown. But what we're looking at is mostly siding, roofing, windows. A lot of these older buildings, we need to get the envelope sealed up so we don't have water intrusion at this point. And they're major issues. About $200,000 for the roof, roughly $30,000 for foundations, about $250,000 for siding.
So what's your number? I mean, you just throwing out number, what's the number? I have to.
Little over $500,000 in addition to whatever needs to be done
Yeah,
with
I mean, we
the
throwing out
front of the
numbers.
building.
About $500,000, okay. All right.
The Tillman House is about $250,000 as well with the siding and the windows. We've done lead paint testing. That's an inflationary item when you look at re-siding or repainting any of these buildings.
That's a big chunk. And then two, with the Tillman House, that's utilized pretty regularly in it.
Yes. And don't get me, I hope I don't say the wrong art council, but is it the art league or the art
It's
council?
the Art League.
Art league. They're usually regular. They have weekly meetings and things of that nature. So it's actually used on a regular basis.
Right, I mean, but in terms of. So the building, the facilities are being used, but the city's got to pay all of the maintenance and all that stuff on the.
No, the contract that we have with the art league, Tillman House, they actually have they are paying most of their maintenance, low maintenance. We do the major maintenance for us, AC units and stuff of that nature.
Right.
They're handling the low maintenance for us, repairing small stuff, and they also give us a contract of $300 a month to help offset expenses, and they do their own maintenance for us, yard work.
And just to note, they also were able to obtain primarily a donation for tenting the house
Mhm.
not too long ago, which
Yeah.
was pretty significant cost saved for the city.
I mean, I would just like to see what numbers are going in from a contribution standpoint. What, we say what's happening, but I like to kind of at least put numbers to it
Okay.
to see what the contribution is as opposed to what the city is gonna be putting in if other people are using these facilities.
Okay.
I mean, I just wanted to see.
Okay.
What it looked like.
I can give you a breakdown of the numbers we had over this past year. And for the most part, we have had not too many maintenance, but this last winter issue with some stuff that went on, it's causing increased pricing of fixing those windows because it had major leak that came out. Most of the time they're self-sufficient and they take care of their own stuff.
Appreciate it. Thank you, sir.
Do you have any questions, Commissioner Jones?
No, it was in reference to the rental. And you mentioned that you and the city manager talked about the pricing of the rental. You want to speak on that?
Go ahead.
And it's really more pertaining to Price Martin, but in looking with Director Cutright at the utilization of the facility and the amount of money that we've historically brought in there, I think in a good year, it was $15,000 a year for Price Martin Center. I think we've maybe been looking at this wrong. It is a community facility, it's a community center. And my opinion as of now is that the commission should really consider dropping the rents and offering an affordable option for the community at all of its facilities. And if the commission supports it, we can come back with a definitive recommendation.
Yeah, I'm also along those same lines. I mean, it's something that the city does own. The city own the facility. And again, it is there for the community's use, and it should be frankly used every day if possible, and just to function out of it. So I'm not opposed to that.
I agree with that. And the conversation went as far as some of the employees wanted to utilize the center at a discounted rate. And the city manager and myself just basically said, what about just giving everybody a discount? And I think that is the right thing to do. Everyone have a discounted rate on the facilities that inside the city, because they're contributing to the cost. So I think we're all on the same page. We want people to utilize them. We want to cut out a lot of the red tape and have them used. And I think we'll have more revenue come in. And you're getting additional staff so you can handle it.
Yes.
All right.
And
And
get
I
more-
agree
get-
totally too.
Right, get more programming, more programming in there. With all age groups, senior citizens, whoever, just use the facility.
Unanimous.
And
Oh, amazing.
so I'm hearing that, so me and the city manager will get together and come up with a price that feels fair in the community and also give us we did a few studies around its surrounding areas of the prices of certain vendors of that size. So we're gonna put all that together and come up with a good price.
Thank you. I don't know, if Commissioner Campbell has anything
I will
to
only
say.
speak if I have something to say
Newland.
for the acknowledgement, though.
You said nothing. Okay.
I do see quality ice. Don't we have ice machines?
But that's-
Are we
that's-
leasing those? We
Yes,
leasing those?
we listen to that, and they do service on that. That's what $100 a month. They do service on. They come in and change the filters and maintenance and any kind of deficiency that comes with the machine, they come to repair it. And it's
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Commissioner Campbell, did you want to say something? I'm sorry.
No, I was just stating that if I wanted to say something, I would raise my hand. So I appreciate the acknowledgement. I don't want you to have to call on me every time, but I'll acknowledge by raising my hand.
Yeah, what you're saying.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Cartwright, you can
All right.
keep it.
next one, code enforcement, Sonny. All right, well, okay, that's fine. You just gonna mess up how it was. No, that's fine. You're gonna mess up how I was talking into the mirror. Recreation, 06. No, we're doing recreation,
On Page 20.
25. All right, recreation here, like I said, our achievements of 2022-23. We have offered 10 various sports programs from February to now. We have served over 450 youths, generated over $20,000 in sponsorship and recreation registration fees. The Mayor's Health Challenge was a very success, and I think everybody did wonderful. We had over 50 registered in that. The mobile rec camp that we do, and I think that was a great success. We went to different neighborhoods in the community and took the camp to them instead of them coming to one spot. And we touched a bunch of kids in that situation and had a lot of returning communities want us to come next year. Held 4 community engagement meetings, and as you'll see in some of the things I handed you, got some information that the community wanted and what they wanted it to do. Partnership with our program, with RBI program, and gave away. We had about 100, actually it was about 75, but we had 100 tickets, but 75 Palatka citizens went down to the Temple Rays game from the Community Affairs and Recreation Department. Next slide. Notable operation changes you'll see over several more variety of youth and adult sport programs that we want to offer when we move over to Jenkins. And a lot of this is going to align with us moving into Jenkins to give us an opportunity to utilize the facility better. Because before then we was using outside sites to kind of accommodate things. Once we have the additional facility space, we would do adult sport programs, sports, basketball, volleyball, have some team events that will be over there. Partnership with outreach programs and services to be more accessible to the public, and that'll be in line with whatever y'all want to utilize the facility for. And generate more sponsorship and grant. And we're actually looking for some grants and some low level funding to help offset any kind of programs that we bring in. And we want to make it a safe haven for kids. At the end of the day, we want this place to be where your young future leaders in America can come and have fun and leave with feeling safe. Next slide. Recreation budget currently next.
May I be excused for a moment, please?
Huh?
May I be excused for a moment,
Oh,
please?
you absolutely may. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to say huh. I'm so sorry in the hearing, even with the.
All right. No,
Hmm.
go back one. I had hit that one then.
What's happening? Clicking.
Yeah, y'all making me nervous all this coffee. Yeah, I'm doing a lot of coffee.
The bottom. You know, actually, you're not.
Arrows or?
We're on a different program.
What do you want?
Who's on recreation?
Oh, just in time.
Hey, if it had to happen, it had to be me.
Thank you for the allowing me to step away. That was Commissioner calling me. I'm afraid if I hit that button, it's gonna tell me to start there. I want to start here. There you would go, slideshow. Start from current slide. Woo!
Still wrong. About-
No real recreation. All right, they don't ask, Sonny, don't ask. Don't ask.
Yeah.
Now go forward one slide. All right, so current operation is 96,400, and a lot of that just have to do with AgriPro. We have the field maintenance team with AgriPro. It's about 54,000 some change in there. The proposed budget, and that's the increases in just of AgriPro and also for field maintenance equipment increasing to 100,007. It's just pretty much new facility additions and increasing the field maintenance.
Go ahead, Commissioner Jones.
Why are we increasing field maintenance?
Now, that's just a general increase of just as the chemicals and everything goes by. It's not.
Said
Mm.
that cost,
Mhm.
and why we're doing it.
Well, me and the city manager, we actually discussed that and we had a conversation about that. And right, go ahead.
So you got 5 fields, right?
Yes.
Right, so there's 5 fields that have what we would call elevated maintenance requirements. So they've got, a specific variety of Bermuda turf. And it requires a specific mower, and we contract for someone to come and do that. And you have to have a certain license to spray the herbicide and the pesticides. So that's just for informational purposes. Obviously, this workshop is so that you can kind of tell us where you want us to throttle back in areas or kind of elevate or increase service level in some areas. So if you're wondering how would you decrease the service level there, there's only a couple variables. One of them is the number of fields. The other is potentially cutting the number of mows, which means you may end up affecting the quality. Because depending on how long the growing season is for that year, you may need more mows to keep the grass at the proper height. Just some additional information for your use.
Yeah, but along with that. For 5 fields. What 5 are there?
We have the 2 fields that are the Book Park fields, the 2 new fields back there. We have Forester Field, Fred Green, Sweet Orange Field, Fred Green, and Shawbuck.
And you currently have, or you planning to have programs over there?
Which one?
I mean, we're gonna start playing, those are baseball fields.
Those are baseball. The Forester Green, Sweet Orange Field, Fred Green, and Shawbuck are primarily the baseball fields and youth softball. The Booker Park fields will be pretty much adult fields, but we could have a where we do make small fields capability to have a few programs out there, but their dimensions are for adult softball.
But the last year we had any softball going on.
Well, I mean, Booker Park is just not getting ready for us to start doing any kind of programming. And now for softball, we do baseball in most of the fields, but most of the time we don't have no youth softball in none of the programs, none of the fields. Now, we have done flag football over there, and we have did kickball and soccer over there, depending on what we had programs going utilizing. Now, those can be used now in the back of Jenkins facility.
That's what I thought I
yeah,
saw.
yeah.
Your request, but I'm not understanding we're acquiring another field, but we have fields that we're gonna stop using when we move in that facility. I mean, I think we need to kind of like, again, prioritize what we want to do. So if we're not gonna be using those fields, 50,000 could get you your position that you're looking for, but we're gonna be paying someone else to just service fields that we're not even using. So I haven't seen any activity on those other fields that you named in the past year. I don't know the rest of the commission, but I would be more inclined to give you that other person, okay, that 20-something thousand, rather than 50,000 on the maintenance of fields that we don't use. Help me understand it. And the second part of that is, can we, say it right. Well, can we invest in our own people and maybe send them to a school, train them to be able to treat the
Yeah.
field?
And that was a conversation that me and the city manager had. We was trying to see how can we find a happy ground of trying to cut some of that, but also get the same quality of service. And
I can give you some information related to that. You're gonna have to get the certification from state, which isn't that hard.
Good.
We may have to pay for them to carry an additional insurance policy, so a couple $1,000s. Or it may be covered, or they can just add it to our existing policy. The mower, I would not advise buying that type of mower. We would lease it and put it on a service plan because the blades have to be sharpened frequently. I would say, just to be cautious, just so everyone knows, that if you did it in-house, I think the quality would suffer a little bit, but it may not be that noticeable. Just because if you're contracting with a company, you got multiple people who have done that work, there's redundancy, there's backup. It's something that they've done for a long time, and they bring a kind of an elevated skill set. Not to say that somebody on our staff couldn't get there, but just being realistic. But that may be something that is worth the cost if you're looking at reducing it by 50%.
Right, so will that be in our facilities, department, would deal with that, or who would deal with that? Parks.
It would be within the recreation department. The way you see the split in maintenance responsibilities between facilities, cultural and recreation is if they have primary use of the facility, recreation or cultural, they have maintenance responsibility unless it becomes like a CapEx, like a roof replacement or HVAC or something large, and then they coordinate with the facilities department.
I think we could a little deeper dive into that, because I'm a little confused about we acquired or releasing, just did an MOU to Jenkins or the school district for their field. Because in here it says we're gonna be using their for outdoor activities. Now, are we gonna use our field, or are we gonna use the one we
Well,
acquired? Well, I mean, we need to-
the primary goal is to actually utilize all the fields, but when the programs grow, but that's going to require us to have staffing to make sure we put in our numbers of ratio. But the use of Jenkins Field in the back was a quick, simple fix of having programs in Jenkins and being able to use the field. So now we have restrooms and capability of rain issues and everything. So that's why we asked for to utilize that field back there, because it brings a component to where we have one shop stop, to where we can have indoor programs and also go outside and do programs, which and under the current thing, when we first got Jenkins, we had that capability. From the sidewalk in the back, that's where our ownership of the building stopped. So that field was just not being utilized.
Can I add something to my earlier statement? We've been making some changes, and one of the things that's in here, because we've noticed where we've suffered the past year is in our grounds maintenance, including right-of-way maintenance. So one of the things that's in your decision unit now is a grounds maintenance supervisor. And Dell was proposing that, and that would be somebody who would have a very similar skill set, kind of a horticultural background. So if this is a direction you're wanting to go, we may look at having that person report to that person so that there is a supervisor that actually has a skill set to oversee that type of work. It's just an option. I think it would work either way. I know Eddie, being a director, I've been in his position before. You like to have control of your areas of maintenance responsibility. But if we have some good options, I guess.
Only thing about that, and I did see that. Only thing I don't like about that, and it's just speaking open and honest, and I think these ratios are in other areas too. We have a supervisor supervising one person. And we're actually paying that supervisory rate, as I don't want to point out something else on here, but you understand what I'm saying? So we're gonna have a supervisor to supervise a ground maintenance person, which is gonna be he could work up under another department. I don't think we need to hire a supervisor to supervise one person. That don't make sense to me, but that's just me. I made that.
with the current budget, there's actually 4 part-timers for seasonal grounds and right-of-way maintenance. So throughout the year, there's actually more people that would report to that supervisor. Just for reference, sir.
Which one are you speaking of?
I'm looking at the full-time grounds maintenance supervisor on the decision unit, first page, second from the bottom. And you'll notice the part-time seasonal grounds and right-of-way maintenance, 4 employees.
Number 20.
Oh, you got 4 there?
Talking about.
It's 4 on your on your single page,
Yeah.
on number 20.
The ground,
Yeah, see right here.
That's,
Part-time.
Grounds,
it's 4.
right away, maintenance. Yeah.
that's for the streets department, said.
That's grounds and right-of-way, sir.
Mowing
grass.
Department,
Yeah.
street, okay. So, let's go to parks, right? Let's go to number 9. On that same list,
Go to the ground
ground
supervisor.
supervisor. So who would that person, if we decide on that position? Who would they report to first, and then who would report to that person?
So Dale, you may want to answer that question, but I believe it would report to your operation, correct?
The ground supervisor, right now, facilities is. It's confusing in the way things are titled, but over both interior and exterior of our facilities. The intent was to have this supervisor report to the facility superintendent with the specialty for grounds maintenance and coordinating with the superintendent for progress, contract management, if we did have any, exterior services that need to be accomplished, like pest control, and just maintaining the landscaping staff specifically. Also assisting the facility superintendent, who has an overall picture of the grounds and whatnot, with any other issues that come up, just a delegation path. Ultimately, yes, they do report to the operations manager and then to myself.
And questions? Go ahead.
Okay, I'm like visual. And I hate to do this, but can you kind of like give me the dotted line?
If I had it,
Facilities superintendent.
yeah, if I had an org chart with me right now, I would love to put it
I mean,
up.
You can say it and I'll write it as you say.
Yeah, so you've got the facility superintendent,
Okay,
and currently you have one facilities laborer and you have 2 parks laborers. The intended change would be to have, under the parks budget, a facilities supervisor overseeing the existing labor and additional part-time staff.
so you'll have
2 full-time staff under
the
park,
assistant will be overseeing 3 people.
2 full-time and 4 part-time.
No, 4 is not there because we ain't okay that yet. But that's what you're telling. I want to know the structure right now. I'm trying to find out where. these-
Right now, they would be directly overseeing 2 parks laborers.
The facility supervisor.
The grounds, yes.
The grounds, the position that's
I think.
listed.
I said currently,
Okay.
what is the structure currently?
Currently, you have one
Yeah.
facility superintendent, and they oversee the 1 facilities maintenance laborer and the 2 parks laborers.
That 3 people, yeah, I'm looking at it.
Okay, I'm just saying.
And we want to add, that's the department right now, facilities.
Facilities and grounds, yes.
Okay. And that's all, I mean, the parks.
Yes,
And we are trying to add. Under that, facility superintendent, what, sir?
a grounds supervisor. We do have the inmate supervisor as well that oversees the inmate crew. So the ground supervisor, you would have 2 full-time park staff and 4 part-time laborers.
Is there, do we have like a the current org chart and then what the proposed would look like, because that's what I think we would need in terms of being able to look at it and follow it, because it seems like it's a lot of confusion in terms of it's not clear where if you had your current org chart and then what's the proposed, that's what because if we're just putting up stuff here now, that's not even something that's even authorized that I know of. It's just if we saw it on the org chart and then we say, okay, well, here's what is approved, here's what is proposed. I think that'll make more sense to me as opposed to we putting this up here in an org, we're in a workshop right now.
But that's why we can see it.
I know, I know, but, I just like this.
I understand because I wanted to see it too, because here's what my confusion, and maybe you guys are more acclimated to what goes on in day to day. But it says on the streets and then it says on the parks and but on here, it's the same, but here it says two different.
Correct. The
Area.
facilities superintendent oversees 2 departments.
Do you understand? 'Cause I don't.
I would have to see it.
I think we
because-
need a visual. I mean,
Right.
I do understand, but I think the visual would be helpful.
Because, you can have people stacked up. You can have a really,
So
a serialized, structure, or it could be inefficient or what. I just like to see how it look on what's approved and what's proposed. That's, that I just like.
that is a work product that we can create.
And I would like to see the current and, that's what I just like to see. I'm sorry for bringing it up. I know we're talking on you, but I want to know where that position is going. And then we're talking about a $56,000 per year cost. That if we have these people already in these positions, why aren't they being trained to do it?
Madam Mayor, if I may. Commissioner Tammy McCaskill's been present since 4:06 PM for the record, and she currently has her hand up. And she currently removed it.
That was it. I would like to have, before we make a decision on these decision items about these positions, I would like to know. I wouldn't want to see facility supervisor, then assistant supervisor, and 3 employees. That does not, the ratio of supervisor to labor is off. Okay, that's all I want to say.
Are you set?
Yeah, and I just, on the parks thing, just talking about the parks, because we kind of went from, I had the question.
Right, and Commissioner McCaskill has something.
Okay, but if we got like the utilization and the bookings of the parks, and if we're not, like we're saying, we aren't utilizing those parks, and we're doing a lot of maintenance and spending money, whether it's watering the and then tilling the fields and doing all these different things. That effort can be moved to the fields that's being used, and then if the other fields need to be kind of maintained, maybe not maintain them so regularly, just like quarterly, every 6 months or whatever it may be, to kind of reduce the overall costs associated with that. And again, I'm with Commissioner Jones on terms of if we can, and city manager stated that if we could get a staff person trained up, spend up on it in terms of doing the fields with the chemicals or whatever it may be, getting certified. And he said it may not be much different in terms of the look and feel of the field. So I think those are the things, and then we'll be paying our staff. We have people who we can schedule in as opposed to not being able to control a contractor to come in. So I think that'll kind of help the city out a little bit more too. So that's what I had.
If you don't mind, can I read back some of the suggestions that I heard?
Yes.
Because I think there was some good ones. So the first is, you would like us to look at the cost to provide that in-house, that maintenance. and a schedule as to when we could. The second is, you'd like to see an org chart, either two that shows existing and proposed, or one that highlights the proposed with the existing. That is a work product we can probably get turned around fairly quick. And then there was a reference to the number of employees per supervisor. So you want to make sure that that org chart will at least illustrate that.
Mhm.
And I'll make another suggestion. I know Commissioner Burrow was talking about utilization. There are some known standards. The National Recreation Park Association actually has per capita standards for the type of recreation amenities you should provide. It's find it online and probably a 10-second Google search.
Right.
So we could bring you those standards in a side-by-side comparison of what you have. And I'll finish on grounds maintenance is more than just parks. We have a significant amount of acreage that we just have to keep mowed. So that document, Eddie's got it. It shows all the building square footage and all the acreage. We'll bring that back as well.
Okay.
Thank you.
So where does this, where does the inmate work crew fall with that ground maintenance?
Very good
How much of
question.
that is taken care of by them?
Yeah, very good question. So we are not getting the number of inmates to properly fill out 2 squads. Mr. McMillan can talk to that, but this is something that happens from time to time. And it's just something that is expected. So that's why we're suggesting to put those 4 part-timers in the budget. And the person that would supervise those would be one of your inmate supervisors. So they're qualified to run a crew of that nature. And we would just concentrate the number of inmates that we are getting, which is a smaller number, to 1 crew.
That would make sense to me. So we'd have some consistency if the prison population ebbs and flows and we don't have those crews. It would make sense to have most of that in-house.
And I'll throw another option out there that I kind of mentioned to Dell before, but we were still looking for somebody that had that horticultural background. If we're not getting those inmates and we got somebody that can run a mowing crew, but maybe they don't have that horticultural background, we could just reclass them. And basically they could take those seasonal employees and kind of get trained up in more of a grounds maintenance, kind of what you guys are talking about, take an existing employee and train them up. So we have somebody who's close to being able to do that. They just don't have that specialized skill set yet when it comes to turf maintenance.
One question. Now, when we train up our own people in order to be able to do that, in addition to what they're currently doing, that should increase their pay, correct?
If they get reclassed, yes. Or if they have an actual plan in place where there's a compensation increase based upon a certification.
Now, would they do the work before they reclass, or would they do the work after they're reclassed?
There's a lot of variables there, Commissioner. I mean, if we're left in alerted, we got to get the grass mowed.
Uh-huh.
But they could not apply pesticides and herbicides
Absolutely
without
not. They have
license.
to.
Yeah.
be
Right.
licensed.
I'm just thinking about the additional duties kind of thing in my opinion, and then the value that they'll bring in terms of, they're doing a job that's not what they currently do. I think the additional duties kind of need to be rewarded. That's just my
Agreed.
point.
Commissioner McCaskill, welcome back. And you have a question or some commission?
It was answered. I wanted to know the grounds acreage and how,
Commissioner McCaskill?
am I unmuted? Am I unmuted?
Yes, Commissioner Council. Sorry, man.
That's okay.
I wanted to know, it was answered. I wanted to know the grounds acreage and how we can utilize the maintenance, the prison crew. So the questions were answered, and thank you. And moving forward, is it possible for me to just put my questions in the chat box, please? Did y'all hear me?
Sonny, read 'em.
Okay, okay.
Okay, and my 2 questions were answered. Thank you.
They were answered. The questions were answered.
Okay.
My 2 questions were the acreage of grounds and how we can utilize more, capitalize more on the prison crew, and those questions were answered. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Cartwright?
Sonny, I got a couple more slides on that one. and then Well, I think that's next in the shoot, so, yeah, so the next slide. Yeah, we already talked about that. So now the current staffing is myself, Reno, and Aaron in the slide. Current contractor we have is AgriPro, which we were talking about that. Future staffing listing, we're looking for a part-time person, as we stated earlier. Recreation, we try to make sure we keep numbers, but over the soccer and flag football and programs, we have a bunch of kids that only have 1 or 2. Reno's there most of the time and he needs some help. But also we're doing the fields and everything right now, as of what we're doing right now for us dragging and keeping the fields maintained. We need another body there somewhere. And then when we move the facility to Jenkins, that's definitely going to be imperative. We have another body to kind of offset the uses of the kids and people in the facility and having the ratio with staff being there. And then the contract right now, again, is still AgriPro. Is what we have in there. Next slide.
I have something if possible.
Is that, yes, Commissioner, go ahead.
Sonny, if you can go back to that last slide, previously, excuse me, previously I mentioned to, Mr. Cutright, the possibilities of, I know that he's looking for additional, but I had the conversation with him being that, Mr. Fales is doing a lot of the programming as far as the sports. Will that help as far as with, well, no, that's not the question. My question is, have we taken in consideration for those that volunteer their time for sports? I know that the county does, where they have some kind of stipend to take in consideration, because he is doing a lot, and then trying to have individuals to staff the service coaches and all of those things. Have that been considered to be a part of your budget?
As our conversation we had, Mr. Campbell, that we actually hasn't put that in the budget because the conversation came after we had already submitted this, but I have talked to the the city manager about some things of that nature, and we're looking at just trying to find the numbers to make sure we can crunch it. But we did put some money in my program budget to help offset, maybe giving some stipend to coaches or volunteers, depending on if we can find that fit in that nature.
Thank you.
All set, thank you. Commissioner McCaskill's all set. Okay, go on, Mr. Cartwright, please.
Now the emphasis is code enforcement.
You got to switch hats.
It kept coming up. They wanted to be out. So code enforcement. You can relax there. You got nothing to say on, you got nothing to say on this. You got nothing to say on this one. All right, code enforcement, what that number, that's 19 on mine, but it might be a different sheet on y'all sheets. Now that's in mine. It might be a different number in y'all sheet on y'all. It's 30 in y'all sheet. Achievements. Okay, with you. Like I used to tell my soldiers, raise your hand when you find the page. Achievements for 2022, 2023. We'll perform an average about 50 to 55 lean searches per month. That's equivalent to probably about 5 to 6 per day. We have taken over 125 cases to the special master hearing. And then out of those cases, we had probably about 75 of those came into voluntary compliance before actually the fines and fees date started. Collect over $50,000 in lien fees through FY of 2022, 2023. We started and initiated the Blight to Bright Cleanup Initiative. Next slide. List of notable operation changes and goals in 2022, 2023, 2024. But we're looking to try to increase the load of taking to the hearing. We're actually now averaging about 10. We want to actually take that up to about 12 to 15, depending on if we get additional help, which you'll see in a couple of slides, to the master's hearing. We're trying to collect over 77,000 in lien fees. And then continue the Bright to Bright Cleanup Initiative. Establish a rotating patrol zone for the city limits. So we're looking at trying to break the city into a couple of map zones. and then rotate out my code enforcement. So we won't have one in that zone for a long period of time. So that way we'll have some fresh eyes moving back and forth in the city. Create a pilot program with volunteers. We're looking at trying to come up with a volunteer code enforcement to where they can help with administrative and offset some data stuff that we do on the vaccine, answering phones, and making sure we keep timelines on the stuff that we do in code enforcement. Take five more of the blight properties to the abatement stage. We have created a list of 23 properties that we already have. We are working on bi-weekly meetings on Bright, but we want to get to that stage where we actually take it to the abatement and actually start doing stuff. We have identified several properties in that program, and with the help of legal now, and hopefully the new legal that comes on in a couple of weeks, or whenever y'all decide to have one, we'll move on forward with that.
Whatever we decide to have.
I mean, that wrong choice of words, but whenever y'all hire one. All right, next slide. Mr. Jones, you have anything on that slide before I move on? Okay. Current budget is 53,259. Projected budget next year will be 55,750. Notable changes, increase in postage. Right now, it used to cost about $3 to $4 for postage. It's up to $8. And we have to send almost 3 to 4 letters per case. And sometimes more depending on what's going on. Next slide. Personnel, code enforcement officers David Green and Krista Lowe. One of my assistants with Aaron Hughes. Contract services that we have iWorks. It's a software that we use for all our code enforcement data, $5,500 a year. And then we pay a special manager, Ron Brown, $5,400 a year. Proposed, like I said, we're looking for a part-time staff. Let's help with offset with the administrative stuff. As we talked about it before, and me and the city manager had a conversation earlier today, so this might be non-factor, but we talked about we have about 5,700 cases in ADG that we're trying to clean up. We also have a lot of phone calls and a lot of people coming in the office complaining. So that's a lot of day-to-day data that we're trying to have somebody else to handle that. So my code enforcement can be freed up to get out there and roam the city and make sure they take care of stuff. Because just that case alone, when they get a case, it takes a lot of time to make sure we go through the proper channels. Included contract service, the same thing. iWorks, unless y'all choose another software, it ain't going nowhere no time soon. And Mr. Brown is on contract up to 2024 September. Next slide.
So on the cases that you have, in terms of the 3 to 4 letters that you have to send out, so those are, period of time that you have to wait before.
Yeah, everything have timeline.
So, yeah, oh, wow.
Yes,
So
yeah.
that's, the 3 to 4 letters,
Voluntary compliance letter first,
right?
notice of hearing.
30.
But the voluntary compliance letter, we try to give them 10 to 15 days. And that's just a letter to let everybody know let the party know that either somebody came in to complain or the city is seeing something that you have a violation.
Right.
It's just letting you know that, hey, can you fix it? The notice of hearing is the one when it comes into really play where they have to have so many days for the notice of hearing so we can properly notice them. And then we got to notice the property and also put it in the paper and make sure we contact them in many ways as we can.
So, I get a chance to get with you sometime. I just wanted to see how those pockets of time, the timeline work and the amount of time it take to get those things resolved. It's pretty lengthy.
It's a long process. Most of the cases takes about 45 days per case.
Right.
And that's in a great compliance. If it's non-compliance or we have a conflict interest or we have issues with the property, it takes longer.
Right. All right. Appreciate it.
Commissioner Jones? Do we know if, since I can't see them, either Commissioner Campbell,
Both said if they want to say something.
the chat.
Next slide, son.
Okay.
All right. Price Morton. I think Price Morton said we have. Very good. Well, Price Mortensen, earlier we had discussion about the rentals and the facility use of that part. So the notable achievements right now, partnership with community programs in the facility, completed the parking lot and renovations. Also established a recurring rental contract with Bridge Club and also the cheerleader programs. Cheerleader in Motion is a program that they do Tuesdays and Thursdays nights out there. And they pay us a monthly fee. Next slide. All right, list of notable operation changes. As we come into the hearting of the Price Morton Center, hopefully that would do some of the things, some of the visions that I have in place, but also that's going to do a lot of interior administrative and beautifications that we're trying to promote. We actually are allocating some money, which I think the city manager has told me we're going to pull that from somewhere else, but we want to replace a lot of stuff inside the Price Morton Center. As you see, the walls need to be painted, the floor need to be stripped. We need to do something with the ceiling. We also want to do something with the sound system and also have it where to be a more beautiful place to rent, and you can do a lot of things, weddings, parties, retirement parties, ceremonies and stuff of that nature. And then also the exterior, we want to work on doing some monthly or bi-monthly landscaping and pressure washing to keep the building right. So we do have a extensive homeless populator that's kind of a lot around there a little bit, and we try to keep it clean as much as possible around when they visit. Next slide. Current operations is about 22.5. The proposal is 42.5, and that was the $20,000 increase to do the beautification and modification to the inside the building. Next slide.
Eddie, real quick. There's not actually a $20,000 increase anymore. As I noted to Eddie, we had put 25,000 in better place. So he only has an increase, I believe it's
6,000.
Okay.
So 6,000 from 22.5.
Yeah, so it was 25. The original, when I started it, I was asking for the 20-some thousand to help with the improvements inside, but they moved the money to, they found the money out of another spot. Next slide. Current staffing, Courtney James and Aaron Hughes, Quality Ice is the only contract service that we have, and that's the maintenance, the ice machine that we have in the facility. We actually asked for additional part-time person, and that was discussed earlier. Somebody to clean and also help with the rentals. And then contract going forward will still be Quality Ice because we have a machine that they service on a regular basis once a month with filters and making sure it runs. Current capital budget program, nothing. Again, the 20,000 was before we had the conversation with Mr. City Manager about the improvements. And we discussed Jenkins previously before we stopped last time, but if you want to go back through it, we can.
Yeah, I want to go back to Jenkins. You mentioned about what region, when you're talking about and we did the renovations and concession stand?
Yes, you walk.
Build a concession stand in there?
Well, yes, the current layout that we put together for y'all, as you walk in, instead of having the concession stand in the corner of the gym where it used to be when they was running programs and taking up space in that situation right there, we want to move it to the first building, first room when you walk into the right, and put like a low concession stand right there. And that room can be multi-purpose, but that'll be primary where you would do the concession stand for any kind of basketball program, tournaments, and thing we run out of there. And that'll just be utilized for that events only. Now, it can be, the room can be used for other things during the time, but that'll be the concession stand spot when we have tournaments or basketball events.
Cost to your quote on it.
Cause our quote on that was into, that originally is into the renovation that comes up under the grant that we got, that we're looking at starting all that. And that quote price, don't quote me on, I think like 20-some thousand to make the renovation. That was when we were using that one room. But now, hold up, when we moved that water line, it went up.
Don't quote you on the quote.
Yeah, don't quote me on the quote now. That quote was originally back in 2000, two years ago, so don't quote me on the quote now. And all of those renovations are up under the grant, so that's why you don't see any kind of budgeting for that. Because I want to know exactly what any kind of increased budgets we're gonna need until we get into the building.
I just, when I saw it. Okay, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
And you are done.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Griffith, water taxi?
Oh, come on. Is that the next one, really? Oh, it is, isn't it?
Yes,
Okay,
that's what
all
I see. I don't know.
right. Favorite one. All right. Water taxi actually starts on page 19.
Okay.
So the budget that you have before you, basically takes into account the, operating, agreement going into effect. We're a couple months into that 6-month window where we're making the necessary repairs, per the, agreement. Your staff is, meeting, with Scott Lagacy and his team monthly, so that we can provide them updates, and they're working on some of their build out plans, and finalizing some of their operational plans. But you'll see we've got an increase in liability insurance here, went up by,
Mhm.
it actually shows a negative, which is incorrect. It did go
Oh,
up.
by that amount, by
Yeah, just
6.
so you're aware.
Okay.
And we have moved, there used to be a terminal building maintenance line in parks or recreation. That line is 0 now, because we're tracking the maintenance in this specific departmental budget.
Okay.
It's 22, page 22.
19, 19,
19.
19.
But really, there's nothing much of note here. This lines up with the agreement that we, executed with, Palatka Boathouse Marina.
Okay. Any questions on that?
The heading, Commissioner Borum, if I may, is on page 22. I cut it in the wrong place. My apologies.
Oh, no problem.
And you got 2 numbers on there.
That's
That's-
because Novus numbers everything
Okay.
at the last city manager's request.
Did you find it, sir?
Um,
You got it right there in your hand. It's
I
page
got- I have-
19.
I have, okay, I had 2 numbers. We got 2 numbers
Yeah,
on the page.
where your left hand is, page 19, the big number, it's that one.
Okay, we look
Yeah.
at the big number.
Yes,
okay.
sir.
All right. Oh, it didn't say, oh, I see, okay, Riverboat.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
title printed on.
Yeah,
page
it say
18.
personnel.
Previous
Yeah.
page, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, I see what you're saying now. Cut.
Yep.
It extend, okay, good deal.
Okay. IT, Mr. Griffith.
Page 14 and 15. Really starts on 15, same issue as the water taxis. So we are budgeting for a slight increase here. Again, we're budgeting for some hardware replacement. There are a few purchases that we're still occurring this year. And we're slowly getting a lot of our desktops and monitors on a different replacement cycle. So they're going in batches of 4 or 5 now. I couldn't tell you specifically if there's any major hardware replacement. Sonny, do you recall anything? Nothing was transmitted to me. Okay, so we're just holding fast with that number. And I believe this contract has another 2 years on it. Any questions?
Did they ever complete the, I know they was upgrading all of the servers and the desktops at one point.
I think we're still in the process of upgrading the desktop, sir. I couldn't tell you what the oldest one was, but again, like I said, they're doing them in batches so that we don't have them all on the same cycle. And I believe we are done with the servers, but I could follow up on that and let you all know.
And if they have, we'll look at the other things in terms of the overall health of the systems among other things as it relates to the backups and recovery and all that kind of stuff. We'll talk offline about that. We just, and when what their responsibility is as opposed to what ours is in internal since we don't have like a full IT person, on staff. I think we should not rely totally on, the contractors to be able to provide, those services, because they're critical to the city as it relates to, our access to the information systems.
Agree with that.
So would you have us look at bringing an information technology staff person on board within the next year for redundancy?
I think we do need to have a point of contact, yeah, a person who have, pretty good level of skill to be able to run the projects, because mainly you got people who are implementing technology. And I don't think our staff are at the levels that they need to be in order to be able to know when these guys are saying and doing things in the upgrading the systems and different things of that nature. You know, they'll be talking maybe some jargon that some people might not understand. And
Are you thinking somebody like that will be training folks? I'm asking.
you know,
from that
we need somebody who have relevant, updated technology skills from desktop to server. We just say we get a person in here who have some networking background. Networking and cybersecurity.
We will, we'll look to include that in your next version of the budget.
Right.
I
Cause
think you'll
that
make
they'll
a-
be
I
able
think
to,
you'll make a few directors happy.
right, yeah, they'll be able to speak the language and be able to do the,
Eddie, you awake?
it'll get,
Everybody sells
I think
set
it'll
now.
give Sonny a break too. Sonny.
Okay. That's not consistent with what I heard this morning. Yes, sir.
Oh, you praying about it?
When you get here.
So he was listening. see?
Somebody with.
All right.
Cause I heard that you couldn't get even across the street online or whatever to September something. So, all of that kind of rings in. That's all I had.
Commissioner Jones, anything else? No? Okay. Water admin? Mr. Griffith?
Dell, you can help me out with this one? And
Page.
if you don't mind, if we can just do water admin and then skip down to the rest of
Three.
the utility.
Okay.
So really the only major change here is some of the administrative costs to the water administration. Previously, my salary was primarily coming out of here along with a few other, page 58. Everybody there?
Mhm.
So you're gonna see a decrease in executive salaries. That's because the majority of my cost is going straight into general fund now and then is being redistributed through a formula to all the different departments. So you see a reduction there. We do have an increase in all the usual areas, so electricity, property insurance. You'll see that in liability insurance, see that increase there. But for the most part, utility administration budget is pretty much flat. This is a portion of the utility budget that covers those items for water, sewer, wastewater, and water treatment that don't need to be embedded in those specific departmental budgets, including your capital reserve line. Any questions?
I think we all sitting up there looking.
You say 59?
58,
58?
yeah.
So it's kind of spread across here.
Yes. And again, I'll point out that major increase in liability insurance and then a decrease in executive salaries as noted earlier.
Oh, yeah, I look at the regular salaries at a significant increase. I'm 64,000 to 147,000. What a calculate the right. The right pay.
Yes, ma'am, the regular salary,
Okay,
right here,
for the,
here.
Exactly, salaries are decreased, plenty, regular salaries decreased by about 3,000.
So that's 64. Again, this is the printing, so I apologize. That 64 is the actual projected expense. The budgetary amount for that year was the 151, 111.
Mhm.
So you can see that it's
Oh, it decreased
a
from
negative
230.
2.5.
Right.
Yeah, keep going, all the way right down. So. I think the heading is off on my page for the year, maybe. So 147,264 is what? Pardon,
Where are you, please?
regular salaries.
Okay,
Second
regular
line.
salary, the 147,
It
Yes,
shows a
sir.
decrease, but how's that a decrease?
Because
it's comparing to our prior year budget. The prior year budget is 151,111. So that 147 is for this budget for 23-24, and the 151,11 is 22-23. The next print that we do is gonna have all those, all those titles are gonna be up there. The next print.
Because when we're looking at it, you can't,
Kind of
Can't
hard
see
to
that.
figure it out.
none of us see it.
Exactly,
I just-
but I've already programmed the next print.
Okay, now we understand. Thank you.
A pleasure.
So if you flip the page, you'll see that category that stops or starts at the bottom of 58 and then goes to the middle part of 59. That's your debt service for the entire utility. You're going to see that we're budgeting for the debt service related to the SRF and some existing loans in here. And your total debt service payments for next year are 1.4 million.
1.4.
Yes, sir.
I see total expenditures. Is that total expenditures there or?
Sonny, can you highlight that one?
What's that first one? Commissioner Boyle,
What's that?
There you go.
debt service,
So debt service is 1,415,904.
down to the bottom.
So
The bottom
Commissioner
left.
Jones is asking about, if you scroll up, Sonny, he's asking, I believe, about the 150,000 debt service for the Public Works building. Is that what you're referring to, sir?
Absolutely. Well, you're not, well, I'm talking about something.
That's at the bottom of page 58.
Oh,
To the
There
bottom
we
of
go, right
58,
there.
yeah,
Yeah.
right there.
For the Public Works building,
Yes. Which the commission did approve, correct?
say that again, where was that?
So the current status is the commission adopted a resolution that authorized the design, the permitting, and the bid administration for the Public Works building. You have not authorized procuring the debt or awarding the bid. Those would be separate items that would come forward to the commission.
Yeah.
Where we're currently at is the project is out to bid. When it comes in, we'll have a firm number for you all to consider. And that will be the opportunity to decide if you want to move forward with the current plan or reconsider. But we have built the budget based upon the $7 million number, just so that you would have something to look at.
Didn't that number say our debt service would be $150,000, just $150,000 a year?
That's a
That is
portion.
only the portion for the water and sewer department.
how many more we need to go in there?
Yeah,
I believe it was $540,000 is the anticipated debt service payment.
Per year?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
And, see,
And this is why we put it in there. We wanted y'all to be aware and have the conversation and give us
That-
direction.
it was ducked off, I didn't see it till I had.
Well, I'm
looked
glad you brought
in
it up,
deep.
Commissioner.
And, yeah, I think
It'll come back to us though.
$500,000. So, That's
And actually,
how many years?
20.
It's a 20-year, yes,
Yeah,
ma'am.
and also, that's inclusive of interest, that 9,000 down there. So it's the 150 plus the 9.
One fifth,
150,000 is principal.
per month.
That's the breakout between
Between-
the various
yeah.
utilities that will support the total payment
Okay,
of 540 something thousand
for the year.
for the year.
Mhm.
Okay.
So this is the portion of that total payment that's being reflected
And
in water administration.
Okay.
Where else will we see that coming out of?
You'll see it in your general fund. You'll see it in sanitation.
I like to just see a breakdown of it, where
That's
it's
it.
coming from, where it's coming from, so we can.
Yeah.
look-
We'll bring it back to you.
Right.
Of
That's,
course. Okay, can we go ahead and move into water and sewer distribution?
Can you do that? Yeah, okay.
okay. that would be-
We did that last time.
we?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, that's what I'm looking at. Are we going right to street? Are we doing it in order?
The streets yet, we haven't did that one. No, and I think the golf is next, right?
Right, but Jonathan wanted to let Dell
Oh.
stay up.
I mean, I can do golf if you'd like me to, yeah.
We can just let Dell finish. Well, he's gonna want to finish, but.
There you go.
Oh, lovely.
On the streets department for achievements, it's the Northside Hot Mix project. We've implemented training and then inspection procedure for contracted work platform. This includes the products that are being delivered to AU, file, etc. And again, across all departments in the public works, we're in the process of implementing training for increase our staff capabilities, knowledges, and there's specific areas of possibility. Along with that.
May I, Madam Mayor? I'm being told Mr. McMillan's mic's not on.
Sorry about that. Apologize. Okay, so along with that, we've accomplished some trainings this year, such as Florida Stormwater Association Level 2 operators. We have multiple, two actually have completed that training, and we have two other members who are currently in process for becoming certified arborists and right-of-way and aquatic chemical applicators. That's part of that licensure for applying pesticides within public spaces or right-of-ways. Go to the next slide. Some of our operational changes are, we want to create some specializations of roles in the streets and stormwater department to address some of the deficiencies. We really haven't had much of a emphasis on stormwater maintenance or repair in the past, but providing training and then providing some insight into the health of the system is important to us so that you guys can understand what needs to happen with our infrastructure going forward. And then having the staff who can actually affect changes within that is a need as well. Again, across the department, we're looking at reporting to you, quality KPIs, key performance indicators to assess what we're doing and how well we're doing it and where we can adjust based on what's approved and with our programs that we have in public works. As stated previously, we're looking to try to, I don't want to say wean ourselves off of it, but become a little bit less dependent on the inmate program. As of lately, and in speaking with the warden, we've had a reduction in some of the inmates that have been available to us.
Why, they still going to prison? I mean, I don't get that one.
So the amount of trustees that are approved by the state to go through the program that we're allotted, the area has a demand for that. So instead of getting full crews, there'll be days where we're only allotted 1 to 2 inmates. And that's, I mean, if we're looking at maintaining a cycle for right-of-way maintenance or mowing on the state system, or even with our parks, when we depend on a certain level of staffing to man the equipment that we have, and we're not getting it. We're just not able to keep up. And so we acknowledge we want to keep the program running for sure, but use it to really augment, in-house capabilities. We want a consistent labor base that we can use to really maintain our core responsibilities, and then use those, inmates to kind of speed us up or address some of our hot areas. We're also trying to maintain the schedule as well. It's kind of like with IT, we don't want to be wholly responsible for a maintenance contractor or really any service when we can't depend on, the labor to actually do that. We want to have some control over it. Acknowledging that we do have some staff in-house, but the amount of man hours that we need to accomplish our maintenance it's more than what we have staff available for.
Well, remember, we had problems. I mean, I don't want to cut you off.
Oh, no, that's
We
okay.
had problems staffing, so the inmate labor actually saved us through a hard time. And then we expanded it. So to now say we want to bring it in-house, we couldn't get people, we could keep people to do the job. So what make you think now you'll be able to do that opposed to 8-10 months ago? I know
Well-
you were probably here.
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah,
I got a little bit of historical context.
do you remember the warden came in?
I lived with all of it.
I-
The highs and lows of inmates and the highs and lows of seasonal staff.
Yeah,
So we've seen times where they don't have the inmates to send out, or we're not priority because we're not a DOT contract. The warden, past year or so, has been really helpful, and they've been sending out inmates. However, we're seeing those numbers go down again for all squads, not just ours. So we're just trying to plan and be proactive and have some flexibility. In reference to the comments I made earlier, we're still looking at getting all the inmates we can. We just want to have the ability to say, put them in a van and have one guard watch a total of how many?
12.
12 versus 4 or 5 that can get in a pickup truck, and then send the other inmate supervisor to get 4 part-time seasonal guys to cut grass during the warm months. So we're just kind of responding to the stressors that we're seeing right now. That's all.
No. And do we also have like contention, some contention? Do we have contention like with other, you say FDOT, right? Also have priority. They kind of give them priority.
Yes, and there's other contracts that they go out with, and again, we just aren't getting the amount of staffing that we need from the inmate program
Okay, so
right
we
now.
got FDOT contention. Do we have any other contention throughout the county? Or whatever with the county, because the county does cuts too as well, right? The
So
county.
there's a lot of people that actually go to the prison. Is this better, Sonny? Okay, all right. Glad everybody can hear me now. So there's a lot of other people that are actually pulling from that prison. Do you know
Okay.
how many people?
Oh, Palm Coast is
Oh, wow.
significant. I mean, they're pretty far reaching with the program.
Wow, we don't get priority? Here?
I'm told we're all equal. It's just they've got to share
Well,
what they have.
We're not all
Well,
equal, because
well, no,
DOT takes precedent.
Not with state, not on state
I
level.
was getting from Putnam when Volusia actually have a prison that's real closer to them.
We deal with the same lieutenant for the same program.
Okay. Wow, okay.
It's kind of a specialized program.
It's a little bit of contention.
Competition is there.
Competition.
So continuing on this, some of our major goals for next year are to create a survey and assess our stormwater system for future capital improvement considerations. We want to basically, similar to our roadway RSL, we want to give you a remaining service life and kind of map, future programs that we need to address for our stormwater system underneath our roads. We don't like those sinkholes. And across the board for the entire department, we're in the process of programming and enacting a career progression program that allows us to create a career path for our employees and a roadmap for when they come in. If they come in as a laborer, how do you become a superintendent one day? What are the boxes you have to check? What are the trainings we expect you to receive and the level of experience that we want to have, at least internally or institutionally. So I think that's really important for us for retention, is that's an issue that we've had to fight for a long time. Also, attracting people to work for us. It's I think an attraction, if they have a path set in front of them, if they don't check the boxes to be at the end, eventually they can see how they can get there.
Well, but on the streets, and the thing that we got now, we have a lot of, areas, I think, Commissioner Jones brought that up one time before on the intersections where we have, well, I know Third Street to Fifth Street, St. John's. And then you got a little bit further up on St. John's, and I know you got Main and, Third, North Third, Main and North Third. You know, if you have a low vehicle, if you get right there, it like, it could damage somebody's vehicle. If you got like a Corvette or something like that. Low profile tires and different things of that nature. So is there anything that we can do to, when we do those repairs, that we don't have to keep going back and back and back? Cause there's other areas in the city, I just don't want to go down the whole list, but there's a number of areas in the city that need to be probably visited once, like Commissioner Jones was saying earlier, on some of the other roads.
Absolutely. Main portion of that is funding it. We're looking at increasing our staffing capabilities as well. A lot of those kind of overlap between both streets and utilities. You've got infrastructure underground, either stormwater, which is under streets and stormwater, or, you know, sanitary sewer, even water mains and things like that. And specifically, you know, those repairs do require a capital expense at that level, just because of the scope that's required to address the issues. And then having, you know, our staff being able to support that, you know, obviously it's nice to have a contractor come in, but there's still a significant amount of support work for MOT, or even sometimes, you know, outside, you know, water main, if we've got a depression, utilities will come in and they'll help move water lines and things like that. So
Okay.
again, just having the staff that's trained up to a level that can accommodate it rapidly is our goal.
Okay, so yes, those areas of depression, we know we got some infrastructure
And-
issues down below.
You'll see some of that kind of outlined in where the capital requests under streets and stormwater.
All right, thanks.
So our operating budget right now, fiscal year 2022 is 530,602, where we're proposing 785, 552. A significant increase in professional services, tree removal, training and schooling to kind of augment our staff with that training program that we've kind of outlined before. Some of those are just inflationary under operating supplies. Streets and sign materials have gone up. We also know that we've got a significant amount that need to be replaced. So we've got an inventory of those that we need to start cycling through. And then stormwater maintenance is a major component of that as well, buying the materials for it. We've got some materials, but in order to make the repairs, we just need them on hand to respond rapidly, like we did on 6th Street there. That was kind of a procurement effort to just get the materials down from Jacksonville, because it's kind of hard to find it on a whim. So maintaining an inventory is a component of that. Our personnel list has changed since discussions with city manager. I believe we've reduced that to one operator and one laborer, and then augmenting that again with the Parks Department and the mowing with the inmate crews and combining them. But I believe you've seen those reflected in your decision. This is an outdated graphic, but you do kind of get a breakdown of what is under the streets department right now, and that you have one superintendent, one supervisor, you have one operator, and there's a typo there with the laborers. You currently have 2 laborers and then 1 DOT crew supervisor. As we're going into our capital, our current this year's total was $10,000. We were able to replace a lawnmower, which was needed. And as stated before, I believe a lot, or the majority of these funds that were in capital outlay and in capital improvements were shifted to different funding areas.
You mean your budget last year started at $10,000
That's
and it increased?
that's what we set aside last year for capital.
$1,990,000.
You did tell them that 2,429,000 is not in there, right?
We were just getting to that. Yes. So
Okay.
that has been shifted to a different funding line.
Y'all did this because I asked for shock and awe purposes.
Yeah, you
So-
did.
It's a big number.
So we really just wanted to illustrate the fact that the city has an enormous asset in its road infrastructure, be it the roadbed, be it the stormwater, be it your sidewalks, your curbing. You know, by our estimation, you got in excess of 90 miles of curb line in this city. And there's a couple financial statements I'd like to make to just kind of illustrate how far behind we are. You do not fund annually any capital replacement or fund depreciation for streets and stormwater. Any projects that we do are solely funded by grants and Better Place. The money you bring in, revenue sharing from the state, which is supposed to be assigned to roads solely, like your fuel tax, those things of that nature, exceeds, at least it did last year, exceeded your operational budget in streets. I'll say that again. The money you brought in for road maintenance and revenues exceeded your expenses
Wow,
for streets operating.
so we have a excess money.
It's
The
being
money we
used-
brought in.
It's being used in
Oh.
other service areas within your general fund.
Oh, okay.
So we wanted to show you this number, because if you wanted to know what the gold standard was, that's where we need to get in maybe another lifetime.
But from the planning aspect, you said we don't set aside anything, or it has historically not been
Addressed.
budgeted.
Both.
So do you ever recall them ever having a budget for it?
No, sir.
Never? Okay, so what, you got a recommendation right there, right?
I do. It's just to get started,
Okay,
even if it's $5,000.
right,
And then
Yeah.
10,000 next year and 15 the next.
Okay.
And I
Gotta
think,
start somewhere.
Dell, I think you and me and Miss Cardy arrived at some number that allowed you to start setting aside for replacement.
Correct. There was a reduction in that 10-year vehicle replacement allocation. I can expound on that if we want to, or I can wait. It's in every single department of our public works.
I believe what we ended up putting in capital outlay, if I'm looking at my notes, is $42,000. So
42,800.
that's up from zero.
and I mean, how much would that help in terms of what number would provide help outside of what the grants and different things of that nature? Just say if we were funding things, if we didn't have grant, what number would be good to be able to fund project?
To be able to do a meaningful project, you need in excess of $1 million, but
Oh, wow.
even a portion of that and leveraging that for grant revenues. I mean, I think you
Okay.
recall our goal is for every local dollar, we get $3.
$3,
federal
right.
and state. So, yeah,
Okay, well, that's good. We can start somewhere. Then we're starting with 50, you say?
But is it realistic? I'm just looking at things on capital outlay. Is it realistic for us to replace the vehicles every 10 years? Is that realistic for a city our size?
you're not right now.
The goal would be for it to be. We need to take steps to get there.
And would that be like with a better lease program like the police department, or what do you suggest? Or we haven't gotten to that part of the planning?
There's a few options. I think there's some hybrid options that we were discussing, potentially leasing to reduce that replacement timeframe. We've got vehicles from 1986 still rolling around. We really just want to make sure that they're safe. I mean, we want modern things to help our people be productive, obviously. And right now, no, it is not fiscally attainable to maintain that $277,000. It's really to show kind of what we should have been. We've never allocated it before. And that means, within 10 years, if you did that, you could replace it. If you did that lease program, it's more expensive upfront, but you're able to set aside money as well to start funding full replacements in the future.
Yeah. So I guess that's when I got, but I want to say something.
Well, I want to add something to what Dell said. The typical practice for the last couple of years is that anything that we put on a lease or a debt service payment, the amortization schedule is shorter than the replacement life cycle. So in essence, we are getting ahead. So a 10-year replacement cycle, we put on a 5-year debt schedule so that you pay it off and then you've already budgeted that payment. You just keep budgeting so that eventually we'll be a pay as you go community. We will not be relying on debt.
Yeah. That's great. I support, commissioners that, road resurfacing and reconstruction, that's money we need to put in that budget, capital budget, We need to see that because it was disheartening when, streets department said they didn't have any money in the budget to do any of those repairs that we needed. So, but we're looking
Right.
forward. And, I think we have forecasted for it in this budget somewhere else, right?
Correct.
City manager.
I'll go ahead and give you that rough number right now. Should be on page 77 in Better Place. Sorry, I'm having to find the line item. Ms. Cardy, jump in if you find it before me. The resurfacing and stormwater line items. It may be on 78. There it is.
That's what we're working with. eventually.
You say stormwater?
Is that where you see that 600?
I'm looking at line item 186455, which
Right.
earlier we had 820,000, but when we got through the grants and the matches, I think we're sitting at just under 700 now. But there's a stormwater line item too for 151,000. And pretty much any resurfacing project that you all have talked about recently, there is a stormwater component to that scope. So in essence, you're really talking about, close to $900,000 for a street project.
Then we get some of the stormwater, we got that grant from the, hurricane, to do some stormwater projects, so, how would that help? I mean, wouldn't we be able to utilize that versus?
It's restricted to 3 specific areas, Commissioner. So Golf Drive, Mosley Avenue, that intersection, Krill Avenue and Mosley Avenue, and generally North 13th Street, 14th Street in the Washington and Eagle Street area. So those are 3 areas that are prone to flooding, and that's where those grant funds have to be spent.
Right, I've seen a lot, and so there's especially Krill and Mosley, and you said
Yeah, Washington 14th Street real bad.
right, and then even right there at when you're going on the underpass, I mean, it was just not long ago, when we had a good rain, you had trucks that come through there, and it was right there at the bottom of the trucks, and cars would just look like they just almost like floating through, so.
We will definitely relay that to the Florida Department of Transportation.
Yeah, we tell them we need help. Okay.
Sorry.
I'm
Oh,
sorry,
no,
I'll go
that's-
off too, sorry.
Well, I'll wait till I get the button. All right, back to cemeteries. Okay, so on to cemeteries, unless anyone has some streets questions. Some of our notable achievements this year is we've renovated the cemetery office to conduct cemetery business on site. I think a lot of you may have seen the Public Works facility that we want to present ourselves as someplace that people can go to as a business really for the cemetery, and that the Public Works side is just not appropriate for that right now. We've transitioned with the help of our interns. I believe 95% of our cemetery records to the iWorks software that we utilize throughout the city. Now for better records management, I mean, that's going back to the 70s. So we can start looking up, lots and information, at least more readily rather than going through a card or an index, physical index. We've processed 83 rights of interment that brought in about $63,000 in revenue, and processed 73 burial permits this year, about $10,000 in revenue. We've drafted updated rights of interment, help of the city attorney to reduce some of the administrative workload. And we've drafted updated ordinance to communicate our policies more clearly. Yes, sir.
And I know we say, let's go on, but back on page 78, that capital outlay is the 3rd item. It's a sidewalks, public works building. And that $7 million is in there. Is that what you were talking about earlier, Ms. McCartney? Or tell me why is it, so that's in there to be approved. Budgeted approved right now. So you guys say that we didn't approve it. So it's in here now. Okay, somebody, yeah. Did you
Yes,
see
so-
that, Commissioner Vaughn, Mayor? So what's your understanding on that?
All right, so we need to build the budget based upon your previous actions. And as stated before, you adopted a resolution that authorized the permitting and the design and bid administration on the public works facility at the current scope. So this $7 million in here that you see as an expense would be matched with the $7 million in loan proceeds. So it's kind of a wash. So don't think that it's coming from your cash account. It's just an important note. And it doesn't mean that it would approve the project. There's still two times at a minimum where that project has to come back to you for final approval or reconsideration, depending on which direction you want to go. And those would be the bid award and the authorization for the debt. So at both of those times, you can have discussion, or you can direct us today if you'd like to go a different direction. But we're building a budget based upon previous direction.
I didn't direct that. But probably I was on the minority on that vote, but I don't remember, I don't recall that.
I don't recall 7
Okay.
million. I don't think I.
You said
I think
more
I
than one
voted-
time
I
on
voted
that
against the
amount.
7 million.
So, I mean,
I know we need a facility, but I didn't vote on for 7 million.
Okay, so if you didn't vote on the 7 million, you still voted to proceed with a scope and fee that had a scope for a $7 million project. Again, we'll do whatever you want. And if you want us to reduce it, there's a couple actions that I would have to take. So first, there's an active bid out. So that scope is for what we believe to be a $7 million project, building and site. And we would have to reach out to the architect and engineer and probably cancel that bid. And I guess that would be it. But you have to tell us which direction you want to go.
yeah, I mean, it was. When I look at another area that we all agreed that we needed to take care of, and that was the streets. And even to the point where we had streets caving in, we said, hey, we need to prioritize those things. Public works building is in discussion for something in the future, but that wasn't this budget cycle, and that wasn't this year. I didn't think that we were talking about making that happen. We haven't even, we approved the roof for the police department, 400,000. I know, and we argued about that. So I know we didn't just say, okay, yeah, let's go along with 7 million and let's talk about the debt service that we're gonna create. We hadn't discussed that in full. Like we discussed that a little more today than we even did the
So
thing that came up.
here's another alternative. I can remove any mention of the public works building and the debt service throughout your entire budget document. You still have an approved resolution that authorizes Passer and Associates to design, permit, and bid that building. We usually take the approach that when there is a project in development, we are proactive with budgeting for it. But if you guys don't want that, we'll gladly take it out.
Nope, because my experience has been since I've been up here, when it's in there, some of those things have, because it was funded, it ended up happening. And I caution on there, putting a caution sign on that one and not putting it in. That's me, one Commissioner Jones. I don't know what flavor of aggressive commission was, it was mayor.
It is an easy change. So if that's the pleasure of the commission, it won't take that much effort.
But with that change, we still had the resolution that outlined going for the steps that are happening now. And we still will have to discuss this again, at least on a couple of occasions, based on the response, et cetera. So if we take it out, then we would have to amend the budget in the future, potentially.
Yes.
Do it all the time.
Yep.
Do it all the time.
No, I'm not saying we don't do it. I'm just, that's not what I, yes.
The consulting cost. the same.
Is it-
I'll confirm.
Okay.
What's the 133%? That's the 133%, that's with the increase from like 4 million to 7.
From that 3 million to the 7 million.
4 million, oh, this
It
3.
was 3 million, you remember?
3 million was in there from the prior budget.
Okay. Yeah.
I mean, we haven't even, and it's, you know, because I want to see what's going well, but we didn't entertain what a $3 million building could get us. I haven't seen that. I'm sure I could get us something. Huh? $3 million for renovation. I mean,
Oh, we, yeah, I guess we can consider looking. We're still looking when we can look. We got options.
perhaps we could maybe scope it down, or, you know, we want a Rolls Royce, maybe we need to get a Cadillac.
So it's a design build solicitation that's out. So that is a possibility. You know, you're gonna select a design build firm and team based upon their qualifications and their ability to meet the budget. So it is possible that you could value engineer down, but we could not use that solicitation for another site or renovation unless we extended the current solicitation and issued an addendum to the same. So I offer all this up so that you kind of understand all the other moving pieces, because if you're wanting to go in a different direction, your staff would definitely support that. We just don't want to be going in the wrong direction.
What would be easiest and better for staff and to help, you know, incorporate that? And we don't want to make it to where it's so complicated, but we want to make sure that we have those options in there. So what you think would be better in terms of trying to?
So if I take into
Accommodate.
consideration what I've heard from you all, Commissioner Borum, Commissioner Jones, and Madam Mayor, I think it's best, let's remove any reference to the Public Works building, so you don't feel as if you're already approving the budget or the scope. Let's let the RFP for design build services run its course and see where that number comes back. If you want me to consider another option, I'd ask that you kind of tell me what you think that option is today. And we could bring it back to you at such time when we get the response to the design bid solicitation.
As in like another building or a site?
Yes,
that-
sir.
Okay.
I mean, it's obvious that we already have approved the $3 million. So I wouldn't think, you know, I wouldn't be opposed of keeping that number or keeping around that number for a bid. 7 million, I'm not okay with that.
Would you like me to refresh everyone's memory on the options that we previously considered?
Sure.
Okay. Of note, there's really only 2 or 3 that make sense. One is renovate at the existing site. It's not large enough. The staff doesn't believe that the location is conducive to public works. Really like to get out of there. The second option is to build at another site, which we identified the parcel next to the airfield. You could do that at any other site throughout the city, but the cost is going to be the same. We're still going to have the acquisition cost of the land and the full development cost for the building and the site. The third is to acquire an existing site, an institutional site that could be converted with renovation dollars. And the best location that we were able to identify was a portion of the Jenkins campus, specifically the parking lot, the admin building, and the band building They fit the program space requirements for Public Works, is on Old Jacks, and there is an exit back to the north, which gets us to US 17. So those are the three options that I think you have for you. And obviously Jenkins would be at a much reduced cost.
And to me, the first option isn't really an option. That's just my thought. Restoring what we have, that what there is. Also, one of the issues is it's still in the middle of a residential neighborhood and it's very intrusive to the people that live there. I don't think remaining there is even an option. So in my mind.
I have a question after that.
Commissioner Campbell, yeah.
Yeah, in lieu of what Mayor has stated, and with the current location not being conducive, what makes it so conducive outside of the space? I think it still intrudes on the neighborhood if it's at the Jenkins location, and it intrudes even more. But I'm not even a fan of that idea with Public Works being again dead smack in the center of an area that's not even far from the area that you're trying to remove it out of.
Would you like me to respond? I respect the commissioner's opinion. When you look at that area from an aerial perspective, the site is actually pushed back from the roadway, which in comparison to the existing site, there's a 0 lot line and our parking lot is literally in the road and adjacent to residential homes. The Jenkins site allows you to have proper landscape buffer and improved parking lot and to push your larger equipment to the rear of the site, which there is no residential adjacent. He is correct that you do travel on Old Jacks. There is a smaller number of residential homes there back to the west. And most of that traffic, with the exception of those vehicles responding to the adjacent neighborhood areas, would most likely be directed back to the northwest on Old Jacks. But it is still adjacent to, even though there's more buffering requirements to a residential area.
I thank you, but I still respectfully disagree.
Commissioner McCaskill spoke in the chat that she agrees with Commissioner Campbell as it relates to the Jenkins site.
Do you have any further questions, discussion? Okay, Commissioner.
So the feel like we're
Did we
having
give the direction or answer that you needed? City manager?
No, thank
I have yet to hear a direction.
That's what I'm thinking.
There is another institutional facility that is not publicly advertised, that could entertain that is edge of the city, closer to US 17 and Old Jacks, not adjacent to any residential. So we could look at that. Commissioner Campbell, McCaskill, did y'all hear me? Okay, I'll repeat. Sorry, I did not have the mic on. There is another existing site with buildings that we could look at. It's my understanding there's another school that's not in a residential area that is up for replacement, and the school district may not be replacing it on that current site. So we could look at that, but again, I would need authorization from the commission. And what budget amount you'd be happy with.
I don't know. We could achieve happiness with this budget amount, so I'm
What-
liking that.
What was that other location that the school had?
Is it, it's not James A. Long, which one's on Old Jacks? Commissioner Campbell, what is the school up closer to Beck Automotive Group?
James A.
That's James A. Long.
Okay.
That'd be a good spot.
Again, it's not confirmed it's available, just in conversations with the school district, it was a possibility.
Yeah, all right. Yeah, that'd be.
So you're probably gonna have to reiterate that so that.
No,
Commissioner-
good, I heard.
You heard it? Okay, okay.
That's-
Okay, so now we need to provide some direction to,
I thought I gave,
My.
said keep the 3 million.
Yeah, keep the 3 million and keep the 3 million in there rather than zeroing it out. And look at, well, from my direction standpoint, and everybody has to put their input in, but Just look at, the James A. Facility
Huh? I guess
for
that's
Public
it.
Works.
Commissioner McCaskill has something.
Mayor Correa, in reply to James A. Long, Commissioner McCaskill advised that's a better site.
I think we're closer to direction.
Well, yeah. So it's sounding like if it's available. We're looking at James A. Long potentially, if it's available. Or at least to look at it, I guess, to start. It's a start point. Field trip.
And was there consensus on the budget amount and leaving it in the budget, including the debt service payments to each department?
300,000?
He's voting, he's on. He's on. 300,000 will be great though.
We could get a roof.
House.
Yeah.
So, yes, obviously you, 3 million for Commissioner Jones, I don't know, people keep coming and going. So
What do you say, Madam Mayor?
I frankly was willing to keep it as a placeholder in the budget and just move forward and see what comes of what is put out there in terms of the bid and such, the amount that comes in. I'm just curious as to what would really come in and work off of that. And I just am more interested in that. But if we want to look into the site too, that's a whole new realm.
Commissioner McCaskill said yes to 3 million.
I think we have consensus.
At some point, I did see Commissioner Campbell give a thumbs up. I'm not sure if it was for the 3
Yeah.
million. I think it was.
I'm for the 3 million, but I'm a little bit more interested, and this can be an offline conversation of how the 7 million came into play. So I don't know if that will require going back and looking at the minutes, but I am a little bit interested in seeing how that number did come into play.
You heard me. He said he's interested in seeing how the 7
He
million.
arrived at the
came
7
into
million.
play.
Yeah.
I mean, I can elaborate. Yeah.
I remember hearing it, but I didn't think we approved it. But I do remember we approved Passerelle doing the services. I do.
Yeah, I mean,
We
so
okay.
to be clear, the commission never said they were in agreement with a $7 million project. The commission had agreed a scope for a public works building all the way back to 2017. So, you know, I agree with you, all of you, that you never said that we want a $7 million facility. All we're doing here is putting it forward for discussion purposes. And it seemed to be quite effective because now we're down to a realistic budget, which is what we all wanted. So, thank you. Yeah.
Okay, so we've got 3 million. I think you just want some direction, really.
I think we got it there.
Okay, thank you. So good, we can move on. Thank you, Mr. McGill, you can move along.
We're somewhere in the cemetery.
Somewhere in the cemetery.
Putting that $1,000, 1,000 of that 700 down to the road resurfaces and everything. No, I'm just kidding. I would like to see it in there.
I have a question with the
There will
cemetery.
be a rebalancing and we're gonna look back to your previous directives to see where to allocate that.
Did you were
I
on
have a
cemetery? Did you?
I have a
finish?
question with regards to the
Oh, I'm
cemetery.
sorry, go ahead, Commissioner Campbell.
Where are we with the request that was made for surveillance for the cemeteries?
We weren't surveilling. We weren't surveilling. We weren't. I don't think we gave direction to surveil because of.
We got prices, but I don't think we ever gave direction.
But I'm just saying, I know that was something that we were trying to have, but I don't see any of that placed in the budget as a potential budget holder.
Wasn't it a legal reason? Don
Yeah.
said too?
I think so.
Wasn't it a legal reason?
It was. Yeah,
On the cost.
a combination of both.
Significant. I'd rather have.
I
security here.
remember that distinctly.
Yeah, we did. We'll sit with that.
And we said we didn't want that.
Correct. So previously, in regards to that, I don't know if we had clear direction, but the indication was that the price was not really something we
These are-
were willing to entertain. There were legal considerations as well, from council that might not necessarily be something that we wanted to do.
Has that been communicated to those who expressed
Commissioner
that
Campbell
interest?
speaking.
Has that been communicated to those who came before us, or are we just not going to address it as all and let it be swept under the rug?
I think we discussed that. at
We
one
did,
point that
and we
wanted-
had it to where they was gonna come back with a, because we asked for the maximum of what it would cost for the implementation. And if it's something that we can't do, I just simply ask that we address it to those who came before us with that concern, because from that conversation, they were under the assumption that that was something that we would take under consideration. So whatever the decision is, I just ask that we make sure that it's communicated properly, so that nothing will come back on us as a commission. So, yeah.
Absolutely. We can outline the discussion, reach out to the individuals that originally brought the issue to light. Any more questions on that, or?
No, sir.
No.
Okay. So we'll look at some operational changes. And you'll kind of see this more in the budget, but we're looking at least increasing the level of service for landscaping, more specifically with hazard tree removal and like Westview. There's just been things that have been let go for a little bit longer than needed. So it's just housekeeping to make the sites more presentable and also to maintain them for historical purposes. You've got some larger trees that are starting to encroach on grave sites. Again, like with every other department, recording some KPIs with the cemeteries, things like, how effective are we at bringing in customers and moving forward with the sale of a plot and our mowing frequencies. We would like to more clearly define the sections for burial plots and stop vehicle traffic from crossing burial plot lines. Even recently with the mapping and the use of Palatka gases GPR, we've located some areas that really needed to be more defined. We had some vehicle traffic crossing over unmarked graves or older graves. So it's a high priority to us to make sure that we keep people where they need to be within the sites. We want to continue to remove hazard trees around the perimeter of the property and throughout. Again, they've just gotten a little older. Again, with every other one, we just want to produce some frequencies and things that we can report to you in a quarterly report. Our operating budget. Sammy, could you help me out? I don't think the clicker's working right now. The current total is 53,550, which is actually a bit of a misnomer. There's a budget amendment that's coming in the next commission meeting to make a correction. The landscaping contract that was awarded in 2021, the tune of $84,000 a year, was never amended in the budget after it was awarded. So the new total would actually be for current operating year, 137,550. It's really like a $17,000 operational increase over that number once you account for the mowing contract. Our increases are again in tree removal, chemicals to kind of help with our landscaping maintenance, and operating supplies for consumables related to that.
I just have a question. So we're paying $84,000 a year for cemetery cleanup
To mow roughly 100 acres,
to mow?
correct?
Just
Yes,
that one?
all four
Four.
All four?
or three, I'm sorry.
Three?
Oh, yeah. Okay. The visual, yeah.
Again, it's a significant amount of acreage to try to do in comparison. It's, a lot of detail work as well. We have to go hand weed eating between all the graves, and in Westview, you can't really use equipment between all those. So it's all handwork. So again, just kind of accounting for that going forward, we'll note it. So the operational increase isn't great. I believe it's about 11%. And that is actually, oh, yes, sir.
You quick, man, you quick. But listen, also, I know you guys did some renovations to the building out there.
Yes, sir.
And y'all have, how many offices out there?
Well, one reception area and one office.
One office. But it's not being manned. And I would like to see that building be manned. I'm gonna tell you for 2 reasons. And one, you just mentioned about the cost of surveillance. If we have somebody out there, maybe it won't be a demand for surveillance. And we renovated the building, so we put money into it. And also for families who are coming out there to purchase these lots. Maybe not full time, but I mean, the more eyes out there, the more it's a deterrent, I believe. All the stuff that's happening is not happening at night. So just a suggestion, manager. I don't know how you feel about that.
Not to minimize the woman that came before us with her concerns about her son's grave, but what is the actual amount of vandalism issues in the cemeteries? I mean, putting up somebody there to kind of wait for something to happen may be a little over the top, in my opinion, but I'm just curious if we know, Chief Shook, approximately the number of incidents that even occur. Not to minimize what happened.
I would need to double check, but we've had, to my knowledge, no calls for service for vandalism in the cemetery this year.
So I think we had that information, I think the last meeting as well, in addition to the attorney's opinion, as well as Mr. Dell's his proposals for the various number of cameras we needed, so.
And just to kind of add on that.
I was just saying that I'm not sure it warrants having somebody there.
Me and the chief spoke to that.
Well,
But you go ahead.
excuse me, but you said don't want having someone there. It doesn't warrant someone being there, but what warranted us putting money in the building if nobody's there? I mean,
So,
I mean,
Please.
I'd like to answer,
Yeah.
just for context. There's a number of other cemeteries throughout our community. There are about 1 or 2 of them have a building or a structure. And usually, it's not at the level that we have with restrooms and an air-conditioned space. It's like a mausoleum space, or it's equipment storage. So we are kind of over exceeding in that category. I'll also note that I guess every cemetery is technically manned in a sense.
Man or woman.
But no other cemeteries within our community actually have staff. And what we found historically is the person that worked at the cemetery, there wasn't enough workload. So those job duties over time were merged with other clerical and administrative responsibilities. And that's why they kind of were brought back down to City Hall or Public Works, because they worked directly with either the city clerk at the time or the Public Works director, depending on whoever was over the cemeteries at any given time. I think what Dell is putting forward is that they've acknowledged that there is a need to kind of meet family members and the funeral home directors from time to time out there, but it's rare and it's a scheduled occurrence. And since they had a building, they made a minimal investment just to make it a little bit nicer to accommodate the grieving families. It's my opinion that if you want to put a staff person out there, we probably do it on a part-time basis, or at least I would suggest that, just from my experience in the workload that comes with the cemetery. Ms. Krantz.
Yeah, I'll go ahead. Is it,
commissioners.
which commissioner? Campbell?
Commissioner McCaskill.
McCaskill, okay, go
I
ahead.
believe Commissioner Jones is absolutely on point with having someone on site. It can help with families coming on site to ask and answer questions. Also, why was the purpose of renovating it if we're not going to staff the facility? I thought that was one of the purposes, ...
Well, one of the intents was to intermittently staff and again, to have a meeting area better than Public Works. Also for record storage, we've got a significant amount of maps and presentables that need to be shown that we just don't have space for, and we need a better space to store them in. And again, scheduling those events to happen, at least a presence on site, knowing someone could be there, is beneficial. I am in agreement with the city manager. Having someone full-time out there, divorced from Public Works is a little bit difficult in terms of keeping tabs on them, and also just the workload. The workload can be intense for a short period of time, requires a lot of, you you just have to be there for those people. Yes, ma'am.
I have.
You gotta go ahead. Yep, I was just waiting.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Hey, two things. Commissioner Campbell hearted the last message that I read from Commissioner McCaskill. Commissioner McCaskill's new message states, I would highly recommend a part-time staff person.
Go ahead.
So my question is to have somebody we have three facilities, so they would be rotating to the other facilities. Is that correct, or would it be stationed at one? How would they,
They would-
what's the goal?
Well, our intent was to station them at the office when needed, and if they needed to make a field, we have to mark the graves physically to go out there, and we do meet with people on site to show them specifically what the location is and to verify everything is okay. So the meeting point is at Westview, or not Westview, I'm sorry, Oak Hill East. And then if we did need to go out into the field with them, which we physically have to do to mark for graves or for monuments, we take them and usually a follow me type of deal out there.
So you got, if you're at west, you see east, or either way, you're at east, you can see west. Then you only have the other location near the Burt Hodge Lodge, right?
Correct.
So I'm just trying to figure out the coverage if they're looking for coverage across to try to prevent vandalisms that have, I mean, we haven't had many vandalism based on what the chief has said. So I mean, I'm just trying to figure out what we're solving for.
Okay, so
Let me finish. We haven't had many vandalisms. So we're not doing the cameras. We haven't had many vandalisms, and other cemeteries are not staffing.
Correct.
There's no cemetery staffing that we know of around the area. I mean, that's just. So we'll put a part-time person to just be there until somebody show up for a visit.
Currently, we are not budgeting for a part-time staff. The plan is we're able to rotate a staff member out when the request comes in to meet with someone at that location as opposed to Public Works, and use that as a place to store records and conduct the cemetery businesses.
All right, okay, I just need to clear it up. I need to just clear that up in my head to understand things. I just need to I wanted clarity. Thanks.
If I may, I think we get so caught up and hung up on the verbiage that is utilized. The reason that I brought up the information with regards to the security camera, that if we are going to make that a part, I didn't see it. And in the event that we aren't, which is evident, that we make it unequivocally clear to those who have come before us, even if we put a statement in the newspaper. That's why we don't, half the time when we don't address things, we don't properly close them out. Hence the reason why I wanted to make sure that if we are not if we are not going to entertain the idea, that we properly bring this to a resolve. And I'm also in cahoots with, I'm in agreement, excuse me for lack of better words, in agreement with Commissioner Jones and Commissioner McCaskill with regards to this. I do believe that there are opportunities, that there are individuals that frequent that may not know where someone is buried, and they go there. They may be coming from out of town. So we have to think about a variety of things. And if there is an opportunity for us to have someone staff there, not permanently, but have someone staff there throughout the week, I think what harm does it do to having someone staff there?
Any further comments? Do you want to make any recommendations? I mean, I've heard them, but do we want to give staff directions specifically?
I think it was said, so.
Part-time position?
What, no. So what harm would, who does that now, Dale, in your staff?
Well, right now, it's because there's no set person. It's split between myself, administration, within our office staff essentially, and the streets department to go out and help locate with tape and ground rods and things like that, the grave. So it's spread out, it's diffuse.
Well.
But let me just put two options forward then, because I'm hearing staffing as a directive. So we can either add a part-time staff person to the budget, or we can look at allocating existing staff out there for a certain number of hours. I will say, just with my experience, what Dale has with the administration of public works, anything more than maybe 2 hours a day is probably going to put an additional stress on the person who's left with the call volume at public works. So you may want to look at actually adding a part-time staff person.
So you said call volume, because we're not that
Answer the phone
technical
out there.
advanced to where we have and answer the phones there too.
That's a very good point, Commissioner Campbell. We could look at, since we have voice over IP, actually pointing that phone out there. Yeah, thank you for that.
Yeah. Good point, Commissioner.
So we could feasibly look at splitting with existing staff, but we may be back before you at some point if we think there's some value in having those two people back at the public works building.
Because what's preventing them to doing the work from the cemetery that they can do at public work? We're connected, right?
I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's what I'm.
So yes, we do communicate, but the environment of public workers really conducive of being able to coordinate with each other face to face. We do have a lot of issues that, specifically when they escalate to my level or our operations manager, the call will be, hey, I've got to prep you on this. You've got someone you've got to talk to. This is the issue. Here, let me let you know the background. Here's the work order, things like that. And again, when we're talking about cemetery operations, yes, you can field the calls out there, but when they're engaged in cemetery operations, it's still all going to fall back on the one person, as opposed to just scheduling it and saying, okay, we can block or we can pull someone in like myself to answer the phones at Public Works. But I'm all for looking at potential, part-time staffing. I wouldn't recommend splitting someone too much from Public Works just because of the workload that they have, especially like when we look at, processing time, every other week, that's pretty burdensome with 41 staff members going through manual time cards and inputting them into ADG and the approval process. It takes one full person a day and a half to do that. And those are things that would eat into.
I mean, and I'm listening, but when you just brought up a point when you said manual time cards, we're not to the point in technology to where we have something that's a little bit more technical friendly. Punch in, punch out, that's a little outdated. Is that something that you possibly want to take in consideration for a budget as well?
We have that functionality, Commissioner Campbell. That's one of the remaining departments yet to fully migrate over.
I think the school district is still doing manual time cards. But yeah, the Chronos system. I'm just saying, I know the school district is still doing manual time cards as well, so.
Well, let me just see if I can explain this real quick so you can get back on the topic of the cemetery staff person or using existing staff. So the time card system will automatically populate into the payroll system. But Public Works has to go in and adjust for breaks and if there were errors with clocking in and out. Without saying too much, there are errors clocking in and out. So we have to make those adjustments, and that does take one person a significant amount of time. But I think the best thing to do right now is maybe we need to include a part-time person in the budget and let us get to that second version, and we could highlight it and see where we stand overall. How does everybody think about that direction?
You just said it doesn't make sense for a person to be able to more than 2 hours a day. So hiring another person, I don't think that. Can we just put somebody over there? I think it's gonna kill two birds with one stone. The problem that we had in the past, where someone wanted security cameras, we'll take care of that by putting someone over there that you actually have someone over there versus $80,000 what was proposed for security cameras. That's what we're trying to do. And then that person still be able to go back and forth throughout their day. I think the folk are capable of punching in and out time card. That shouldn't be that hard of a process. Come on, man. You telling us that? I mean, I don't get the excuse. That's what I feel I'm hearing, but okay.
I
Okay.
believe
So-
Commissioner McCaskill has a comment, just that one.
Commissioner McCaskill?
She said, please budget for a part-time staff member.
Okay, so her recommendation is to budget for another part-time staff position.
You already have one.
That wasn't the intent of that position, though, I don't believe.
I
Well,
think
it's
we
a-
really need to think about how we're adding additional staff. In terms of, we got other departments that, truly need to be able to serve the community as well. So I think we really need to look at, when we're proposing to add additional staff, that we consider that as well. Just a point.
So again, for the cemeteries, so the recommendation is to add a part-time staff, at least from Commissioner McCaskill. We need to determine how to move forward so we can move on, and bring closure to this, hopefully. Clearly, the majority feels needs to be somebody there at least a couple of hours a day. I'm not so sure how that's going to improve security, frankly. And if it's going to, my thought would be vandalism is probably going to occur during the night, not during the day, but that's just my thought. Most people aren't that brazen, I guess there are some. But anyway, do we want to authorize adding another half-time position, or do we want to split somebody? Or how do we want to move forward? I personally am not in favor of the position, but those of you that are, please give direction.
I mean, I think I guess the combination with whoever wants to make that recommendation,
That's what I'm saying.
like I said, make that, and then just hear from staff, and maybe there could come up a resolution, and then we can just vote on it and go from there.
All right. For bringing this to a resolution, I will make the recommendation that we entertain the idea of having a employee there. It's better to have it and not need it than to need it and don't have it.
Commissioner Campbell, was that a new employee or allocating time from an existing employee? Clarification.
It is to allocate for a new employee.
Okay, so I hear, okay. Who's gonna make,
I would just remind you, this is a workshop.
Well, I mean, but we're giving direction, we can give direction based off of what I vote. You know, so.
I'm sorry, what? Yes, please. Do we have a second for a new, to allocate a new position for this
Seconded by
role?
Commissioner McCaskill.
Okay, all in favor?
Nay.
No.
Phil said aye.
Okay. Now what is the direction? we want? Yeah.
I'm a tad bit confused with the
Okay.
vote because I thought we accomplished
I know.
what I'm a tad bit confused, and maybe not for sake of dragging this on, but the vote was, I thought Commissioner Jones, what exactly did you want a new person or did you want to split duties?
Split, we want to employ existing employee that we had, because we have a cemetery person that goes over there throughout the day. Not to get him another position, because they already said they don't have enough work for the person, so we wouldn't want to do that. So I suggested, and I'll put a motion on the floor that we have a employee housed over there part-time, a full-time employee, but part of their time is spent at the cemetery. Can I get a second?
Okay, so that was your motion. Do we have a second? Nothing. I hear crickets. Yeah. So. what
So I
direction
shouldn't
do
have, I shouldn't have to have a motion to give direction to the city manager.
I
Because my
agree. I
direction
agree
was
with
to
you.
have it happen, so
Recommendation from the commission, then it needs to be a consensus vote from the commission.
we all said need coverage.
Yes, sir, I
We all saying that, but
I think-
hiring somebody, when we already have existing staff. We're saying, okay, we had a complaint and a problem. At least for a period of time. Or we made the place nice, working condition. Can we have someone housed there? And you said part-time maybe throughout the day. If it don't work, then it's okay by me, but I'm just saying, I try to find a solution. And I think we all work. Move on then. Just.
Okay. It's- Moving on, thank you. Mr. McMillan, I don't think we resolved anything, but thank you.
Okay, so I think we wrapped up the cemetery operating budget and we're on to the parks, which we would actually like to retitle as grounds, just to alleviate any confusion. So achievements this year, we've completed the Hank Bryan Phase 1, remulching and repairs of the riverfront playground, along with mulching of other facilities and playgrounds. Landscaping and replenishment of the riverfront park, actually in support of the Blue Crab Festival, St. John's Ave, Memorial Parkway to 4th Street and City Hall. We're hoping those take root fairly easily. Again, same thing with all the other departments. We're just looking at creating specialization of roles. Then departments focusing on landscaping maintenance. We want to record our frequency and KPIs for you. So how often are we able to mow the riverfront versus how many times we've outlined in our level of service we should be. We want to integrate our financial records, employees' time worked with our work order management system, iWorks. We think that's important just to record where the finances are flowing and what we're doing with the money. Right now, we've got some staff who are going through the training or at least reading the materials to obtain a FNGLA irrigation technician training and certification. That allows us to complete water audits and make sure that our irrigation isn't wasting water and essentially wasting money for the city. We would like to obtain it's a significant license, but a lawn and ornamental pesticide application license for one of our staff members. That allows us to apply herbicides within parks, grounds, and things like that. Again, increasing our level of service for landscaping and parks maintenance. We would like to look at creating an RSL or remaining service life assessment for all of our equipment, like the playgrounds and fencing and bathroom facilities and other facilities within the parks. Just to show, for capital improvement considerations going forward. When we look at our operating budget. Oops. I think one more, Sunny. I'm sorry, this clicker's not working. Our current budget is 127,950. Our proposed total is 209,750. Some notable changes for us is general increase in operating fund and consumables for maintenance activities and repairs. We've got a lot of tree removal that needs to happen, professional services such as, coming in and doing right now, since we don't have the licensure, herbicide applications to keep invasive weeds and things like that out of our turf areas and our beds. We've got a significant amount of training and schooling that we're looking at accomplishing, again, to support that career progression for our staff and equipment and vehicle maintenance along with operating supplies.
Yeah, about 82,000 increase.
Yes, sir.
Do you have any of those plans that you could elaborate on, like, Booker Park? and That equipment is archaic out there, and, that really need to be replaced. I know we had a grant for Hank Bryant, but I would like to see what your plan is as far as the other equipment.
Sure.
Or what have you. there. That'd be nice. That is a significant increase, but I like, I think you're gonna do
Well,
a lot with that.
within the operating budget, these include the specific maintenance lines for each park. And if we're not looking at fully replacing a 75 to 80, $100,000 piece of playground equipment, we need to maintain it. So we've got some parts that are corroded. We want to replace them. We've got some swings that need to be replaced. We've got fencing that's just repaired. We've got mulch that needs to be replaced on a regular basis. With playground mulch, it's certified for use in a playground for fall protection. So those lines have been increased to accommodate a regular schedule for replacement of the mulch and assessments of those equipment pieces. And don't get me wrong, that equipment is extremely expensive. I mean, we're looking at, thousands of dollars to replace, certain pieces or even components within those. And again, planning for some of the obsolescence of those things and making sure that they're safe for the people who could enjoy them. And that also kind of leads into a capital replacement component. This year, I believe that was one of the issues that we kind of tackled, and we reduced that to balance budgets. But we can kind of see that. Well, we can, I guess, address the supervisor, which was already touched upon earlier. Trying to request a supervisor with a landscaping background, a turf grass maintenance background to address, the maintenance of the grounds and the parks themselves, and to be able to provide concentrated supervision for the existing staff and proposed staff in combination with the part-time mowing crews that we were proposing under streets.
So that $87,000 is not going into the parks itself, it's going into salaries.
No, sir, that $87,000 is specifically going into parks for operating and maintenance supplies. The salaries is accounted for in another area of the budget. And again, we across the board for every park have increased the maintenance lines to accommodate some more, repairs just for swing sets and a trolley, a rolling trolley for one of the playgrounds is over $1,000. And it's just not something we can put together from Ace Hardware. We don't want to do that. So as we go into the capital budget, again, this was reduced in discussions this morning with the city manager. We're honestly trying to remember where we ended up with it. I don't remember off the top of my head.
56,000.
So it was more than a $200,000 reduction for capital outlay and capital improvements for the Parks Department.
You know what I like to see in these slides, when we see these items, I think the line item, the budget line. The budget line to help with some of this too, kind of see where that money's coming from. Or going with whatever the item is. Does that make any sense? Kind of where it flow a little bit better, you can see where the line item and how it land.
I would like to see.
You're saying put the GL budget line
Right.
number next to the amount, so you could trace from there
Right,
to your.
everything
detail.
can match up.
Yeah, I understand. Yes, sir. In the future, we can do that.
Yeah, so to be clear, that would be for next year.
Right.
Right, yeah, right.
Are there any questions with Parks capital budget?
Does Commissioner McCaskill or Campbell have anything they want to contribute? Okay. Okay.
Did I skip one? Okay, on to the facilities department. So achievements this year, we've completed the River Center remediation project, the River Center interior restoration project. So close right now, just waiting on some IT components to get the building operational again. Renovation of the cemetery office. We've gone through the Bronson House, did an assessment on the HVAC equipment and started replacing those under funding for this year, just to keep the place operational. Those units have begun to fail. They were installed at about the same time. They happened to go bad at about the same time. Again, we've opened up the porch and that can of worms, and we've made assessments along, other buildings for roofs for future budgeting purposes. And a major issue that we came up with is in support of the St. John's Avenue for Blue Crab and even the Christmas parade was just the electrical to support those things, but our staff kind of soldiered on and they were able to carry everything out.
You said the end of the fiscal year that, you said it'll be repaired for the dock, it'll be repaired, it's already scheduled, you say?
Yes, sir. So currently the vendor is working on the Memorial Bridge. They're scheduled to be completed next Friday. From there, they'll just shuttle their equipment, their dumpster really, on down to the park. They're projecting, 6 to 8 weeks to complete those repairs.
Right. Would that also include from the time that we talked about this, any other deteriorations? Maybe that's included, because it look like some of it has further deteriorated.
Portions of the dock were opened up for a bid program for the support of the Boathouse Marina project. And actually for the mitigation, so those were left open. Realistically, when we pulled it open, they just kind of fell apart. So there was no sense in trying to put them back together. We've got the dock, that portion specifically closed off to the public. And that is a major portion of the repairs.
And, the type of wood, in terms of, I think, I don't know, somebody was telling me about like the pressure treated, whatever it takes to put pressure treated there as opposed to the current wood that they have there, because it degrades pretty bad.
So you are correct. There is a special treating. It's not something you can go at Lowe's. We've special ordered it. It's AQC4 pressure treating. It's just got a higher level of the chemical in it to maintain the waterproofness of the material. So that was specified, was in the bid documents for both the Memorial Bridge and any replacement material that has to happen down there.
So my question is then for the remainder of the bridge as it relates, because I don't know if it's pressure treated the rest of it. So we're gonna see more deterioration as well, right? So.
As a maintenance, essentially, yes, it's got a lifespan.
Yeah.
And so any materials going forward will be that new material.
Right. So we'll probably need to be looking at more help from the state, maybe, because we can't, I don't think the city can afford all of the repairs that is going to be needed to that bridge.
Yeah, Commissioner, you may recall, when we funded for what I'm gonna call the temporary repairs, because there's still some structural issues. In conversations with the state, with the District 2 representatives, they're kind of using us as a pilot project. They're going back to, state administration and saying, hey, we do a lot of these local projects, but we don't look at 25, 30 years later when the asset basically needs to be replaced,
Right.
Helping them. So they're moving forward with ours. I believe it's on the work plan.
Okay.
So at some point in the near future, they'll probably be reaching out saying, hey, we're going to be redoing this whole thing. And that may even be an opportunity to reconfigure the structure and use a composite material. So it wasn't a commitment, but they strongly emphasized that they're using the boardwalk as an example and hoping to help us in the near future.
Okay, certainly appreciate it. Thanks, sir.
Moving on. Sunny, next slide, please. Again, parroting what we've done before in the other departments, we've implemented, KPIs within department. We're in the middle of finishing up, the online work order request system, at least internally to submit facilities requests as opposed to send an email or phone call. You just puts it directly into our queue for our staff to look at. Our goal is to support other departments in preparation of budgets for their facilities and then creating good assessments for them to utilize for justifications going forward. Creating that roadmap and that plan to kind of map out expenses for our larger assets is a major portion of what facilities does in that, fiscal sustainability mindset. And again, we're trying to execute a continual capital repair and restoration plan to address and maintain facilities. That's just keeping up with your milestones, such as replacing roofs, water heaters, things like that. Just outlining it so everyone can see where we need to be. Our operating budget is $22,000.58. Our proposed total is $104,258. We've got a significant increase in professional services. We'd like to be able to provide more of those assessments for buildings, some other services such as electrical repairs that are kind of outside of our scope. Sometimes, we've got some staff, but sometimes we really get in over our heads. So we want the level of safety that provides us, along with, plumbing repairs and specifically roofing repairs as well. As we all know, the roofs on our city's assets are aging, and we anticipate having to make some more substantial repairs, at least to keep up with things. So we want to keep everyone out of under umbrellas. We're looking at, again, increasing our training and schooling, our equipment maintenance and our small tools lines, just to accommodate the new things that we're trying to enact within the department, and our operating supplies as well. We've been kind of operating with limited resources for a little bit, and we're just trying to address that so we can more readily respond to the city's needs.
In your training and schooling, do y'all get any certifications out of that training?
Certain ones there are, along with just general knowledge. There's certifications for, basic electrical handling. If we have a new hire, we want to make sure they've got a basic level of competency. If we ask them to do, general things like a ballast bypass, we want to transition from fluorescent light bulbs to LEDs. We get a longer lifespan. They don't dim or flicker, things like that. But there's some risks in that. It shouldn't take a call to an electrician to do it. It's just we want to make sure our staff are doing it safely. That's our major concern there.
Any?
Oh, I'm sorry. Any questions?
Any questions? Any
All right.
questions? Commissioner Campbell or Commissioner McCaskill? No, okay. Moving right along.
All right, facilities personnel, we're requesting one full-time position, and I'll remind everyone that facilities is in combination with grounds. All of those staffing are under the facility superintendent. There's also, a working superintendent. Terry is wonderful in what he does. He goes out and he does all the work and he makes all the phone calls too. But having two laborers with him kind of really augments his ability to kind of, leave the site. You've got some tasks to take two people, and if he needs to go meet with a vendor or someone else, that gives him that freedom. The proposed position here in discussions that we've had today are actually kind of a hybrid role, light maintenance, general painting and things like that, but really focusing on some of that custodial service that we know we need to address with the removal of the existing contract. We would like to provide this service throughout the city at a regular interval. And providing that is, I think, important for our staff, and also just to keep, things moving in a regular manner.
That's confusing.
Go ahead.
50%. So it's the same person?
So in terms of budgetary purposes, my salary is 50% under facilities and then shared elsewhere. It's the bottom half. I walk around a lot.
All right, well,
Okay.
okay. So you're the 50%.
Correct.
I just try to understand. I just try to understand.
So you're asking for a operations manager, facility superintendent.
No,
No,
sir.
no, no.
We're asking for one
labor.
facilities laborer. We have one right now. And we would be requesting an addition to help.
Okay. My question, I think I asked you before about when we're doing this
Mhm.
disclosure. And this is for the city manager. as well. As we're budgeting, all the facilities need cleaning. All the facilities need cleaning, garbage change. So why don't we just have a custodian that we hire or a couple for the city? Would that be a viable?
Yeah, so if you look at the decision unit sheet, you'll see that I've made some changes to that original request for facilities. It's actually it's on the first page, bottom line, full-time facilities custodial services. That's gonna be their primary role, is actually custodial, and as Dell said, light maintenance. So touch up, paint, minor repairs of items around all your facilities. Right now, that custodial fell to contract, and we weren't getting the level of service that we really needed. And we don't really have someone to just do light maintenance and kind of keep everything looking its best.
So that position will hit every building throughout the week. I'm not gonna say every day hit all of them. Sounds like that's
The
possible.
only split would be Eddie's position, if approved, that resource attendant is also custodial based, but they would only focus on recreation and rental facilities. So, City Hall would fall to Dell's staff person, the annex building would fall to Dell's staff person. I could go on, I think you understand the split. Though.
And that person to clean up.
Yes.
Over.
Dell's staff person would be primarily responsible for the restrooms at the riverfront. And yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Right, moving on. The capital budget, that doesn't exist anymore. Previously, we had allocated zero capital in facilities specifically, but for the buildings themselves, no, we had not allocated as a city any major capital replacement or repairs for our buildings. We had modeled at least some of the items that needed to be accomplished after doing some assessments. But in order to balance the budget, we've had some priorities. And if the city manager remembers specifically what they were, I do know that City Hall Annex and City Hall Envelope were considerations that were sort of maintained, but the Tillman House and the Bronson House items were either shifted or removed.
Questions?
Along with the outer year planning as well.
Yeah, again, that 1.4 million is for shock and awe and illustrative purposes.
Okay, I think you were successful. Is it? Whoa.
That's the goal.
Yeah, I think you were good.
Anything better than a zero.
The silence. So
Are there any questions on the capital budget?
Yep.
Okay, moving on. All right, on to sanitation. So we've had a heavy focus on staffing. Unfortunately, sanitation is just one of those departments got a high turnover rate. We were planning on having a full staff of drivers, but that has since changed since I wrote this, and we're back down to 3, possibly even 4 vacancies in the next couple of days. So as you can see, it's an issue. It's something that we want to focus on, creating that plan and that progression, that enticement to get people in here who are qualified to drive the vehicles and take the training to learn the routes, and then having a dependable labor force. I mean, Remedy does come in for us and help when we don't have the people, but you could have a new person any day. And we really need people to be efficient on the routes. I mean, we're razor thin on our productivity. You need people who know them, who've got experience on them, and can continue to, I guess, hone that time down and that efficiency. At the time when we were looking at this, the numbers change every day, but we've taken in roughly 728 tons of bulk waste. That's through the 2 clamshells. Residential waste is 6,732 tons. Commercial waste is roughly 7,000 tons. So it's 12 million, 14 million pounds to date, trash taken in. We've completed over 1,200 bulk/yard waste work orders. And we still have the piles growing. Thanks to our public information campaign, we've never had so many work orders ever, but we're endeavoring to complete them as we can, as quickly as we can.
Are they
Yes.
complying now? Are they complying with the, with the size and
Um,
location?
There have been some that have complied, yes.
Some,
Some, but not all.
right,
It's continual. It's education and it's something that, again, we want to focus on. And as you all do remember, replacement of our CNG truck and the new diesel truck is up and running and bringing in our revenue. Okay, so again, creating some specialization within the department, making sure that the routes don't change on people or the drivers don't keep changing on the trucks. Trying to get people into the right home and the right route for them. Recording our KPIs again to let everyone know, how effective we are in delivering the service. We know we need to increase that or improve. And again, we want to kind of create, just for the fleet perspective on this, we do have an aging fleet and one of our major goals was to retire one of our vehicles is almost 20 years old with the purchase of a newer vehicle, but potentially using that vehicle as a pilot to increase productivity. If we do have one that's available for automated side load, that reduces the amount of people required on the vehicle and allows us to shift other people for backups. If we have a truck that goes out, someone calls out sick, 2 laborers on the back, 1 guy on the back of the truck, that's a lot. It's almost 700 stops a day that person will be doing by themselves. So that transition is something that we're proposing to do if available and we can find the right vehicle to do it. Unfortunately, the turnaround times for these vehicles is extensive in that you'll see we've only put in capital outlay and no capital improvements. On the next slide, we do not anticipate being able to get a new vehicle next year unless we make friends with some really important people in high places. But we do have some increase in operations again. Professional services, which I believe was brought back down after a discussion with the city manager. We do have remedy staffing, but we're looking at pulling into vacancy for if we have a position, utilizing those salary lines to offset the remedy staffing costs. We do have an increase in rentals and leases, anticipating some downtimes on our vehicles. If we have to subcontract through Waste Pro for a day just to meet a couple days, it's almost $2,000 a day to run the route through Waste Pro. And if we're looking at potentially renting a vehicle, it's $10,000 a month. So I mean, and again, these are we don't want to get there, but we just want to make sure that we have the ability to field that. We got to deliver the service, so we were just trying to pad that out. We're looking at a slight increase in vehicle maintenance, and again, our operational changes are just being absorbed mostly through inflationary purposes. Our tires are actually increasing, unfortunately, this year, and that's something that's been kind of eating at us in this fiscal year's budget, but we're hoping that we can address that with the changes for next year. Sorry.
You said the guy on the back of the truck, you say sometimes you're down to 1 and you got about 600 or 700 stops. That's too much on one person to be able to
Correct.
do those number of stops. Is there any way that we can augment having somebody else, whether it's, do we need to, I know you say remedy, but we need to figure out a way that we don't have one person, because that's killing you overutilization of one person as opposed to 2 in a day. You got 2 people, if you got 600 stops, if some people have 2 cans or more, and so I can't see one person doing routes in one day, 600-700 stops.
So we do augment, we do shift people. Overtime is a component. Again, we have some trucks that run earlier, some run later. So we'll have 2 trucks on one route to kind of augment, or we'll pull from other departments as well. It's I don't want to say it's 3-dimensional chess, but there is some level of strategy in who you put where. And it's just the unforeseens. And honestly, there is a staffing level in place now that would accommodate an extra person was in the lot. We've just never been able to hit that full staffing level since I've been here. Unfortunately, we've come close, but you know, the nature of the work, some people just don't, once they get into the position, they just don't want to stay.
We're trying to figure out a sweet spot and figure out that, but I know people need their trash picked up, but then also the labor burden on one person is not realistic.
I know.
I don't know the frequency of people being out, you know, in terms of the number of times you have one person on a truck. That's another maybe concern.
We try to avoid it. Again, when we get the call outs and things like that, we'll shift staff to avoid it. But, you know, sometimes it may be for a partial day or something like that, but it does happen. And that's just something that we're trying to address with our staffing levels. And there's other discussions that we've had, especially if we're able to, you know, change how we collect potentially by, you know, using a different type of vehicle with existing staffing. We maybe have extra staff instead of just one extra person. Again, you know, if one person calls out and then one person is vacant, you know, we're down. So, but we're working through it on a day-to-day basis. Again, trying to deliver that service. So if we go into the capital.
Is there anything that we can do to kind of help maybe? Is there anything that you recommend to, you
I
know?
know in the past, and it's come up and it failed, at least that was the opinion of the commission at the time, but trash is picked up twice a week here. Most communities that I'm aware of pick up once. That's a kind of a drain. That's just, again, I'm bringing it up again. I know it's not a topic anybody wants to hear, but that has been, you know, I know it was tried before, but that's a lot to pick up twice a week.
I'm amenable to it, but I just want it to work.
Well, we have to, yeah.
Yeah, I'm amenable to it, and that's a good point. I did speak with the city manager about it in terms of doing that one time a week as well as, you know, increasing. I let him out.
I know Will's gonna weigh in. Okay, go ahead.
I think it's something that we can potentially look at, especially when we have situations like that. But I didn't want to, I guess, try that out until we were vetted that we would be picking up. We will be picking up because we do pick up holidays. People do go longer during the holidays. That was brought to my attention in terms of Christmas, Thanksgiving, 4th of July, Labor Day, all these different holidays we have. We do go one time a week during those times. So that's something that, you know, was brought to my attention in addition, and it kind of stuck with me there. So I think if we had another approach and strategy with the time, and it would not be something that I would recommend putting in permanent, but just to try on a trial basis to make sure that we have all the cans and everything else we need in order to be able to try it. But that's just my opinion.
Commissioner Jones.
I have pictures I can show you of the results when we did it.
I understand.
And
I wrote it down too, sir.
I let y'all see, I let
Okay.
y'all speak.
Would you remember I do remember, yes.
May
That's why I said
may-
I know it was kind of a sore topic.
May I?
Yes,
It's,
you
it's not a sore topic. I just go on facts. The two of you live in a smaller household than the average is probably 3 to 5 people in the house, 3 to 4. And when you have that many people in the house, your volume is gonna be more. And that's all I'm gonna say. So that's what I ran into. Personally, I probably could go one day a week, but I'm just telling you the majority. And then I'll tell you the most part, and it's disheartening. When you go into public housing areas, you're seeing trash all over. You go down pertinent roads like heavy travel Washington Street, where you have both sides of the road, where trash is strewn all through. It's a mess, but you know, I think that's something that you might want to ask the public for prior, you know, that we making that decision, because we've been down the road one time before. And I think that, you know, you have people that have small kids, you have diapers, you have all other things that go in the trash that can make your neighbors, you know, y'all live in a both communities you guys live in don't have little kids. And so
Well,
I
that's-
take all that into.
I don't have any, but that's not true. Other people in my neighborhood do. Thank goodness, no more kids.
Um,
I'm just saying.
Okay.
I think
Well,
Commissioner
just-
Campbell got his hand.
Commissioner Campbell?
I would have to echo the sentiments of Commissioner Jones. We've actually been down this road twice, and I think one of the overwhelming things that had me against it is our public housing area. It was just totally unacceptable, and I don't know of a better way outside of dumpsters. But I think I'm with him about bringing it back. And I also agree. I'm open to it, but again, we have to find something that absolutely works.
Can I add something?
Sure.
So from staff's perspective, we're just happy that that you're open to having a conversation about the service level issues and some of the stressors that we're experiencing. And we can maybe look at scheduling a workshop sometime next year. What I would tell you, you need to be on the lookout for, and we've experienced this for a number of years. Your current routes are a couple hundred stops over what they really should be. And there's only a couple ways to address that. You either have to add another truck with another driver and 2 more people on the backside, or you look at decreasing the amount of times you pick up once a week. I'm not advocating for it. I'm just saying those are the only 2 approaches that you have to kind of, address that problem of the number of stops that you have. And I will note, just like Commissioner Jones and Commissioner Campbell said, we did experience some problems in some targeted areas that if you did bring it back up, we're definitely going to have to look at some solutions for you either way that you direct us. Even if we add a truck, that's going to increase your expenses and ultimately the rates. Or if you wanted to consider changing the frequency of pickup, there are some issues that need to be addressed. Some people are going to need 2 cans. There's a cost associated with that. In areas like the housing authority or other residential areas with density, we'd have to look at locating centralized dumpsters just to be able to accommodate that. So I think the direction here is, we need to budget for a truck, either to add one or to change the type of truck, but that decision isn't being made. We're just budgeting for the debt service. And if you want to have a discussion at a later time about sanitation service delivery, we're happy to schedule it.
Okay, thank you.
I appreciate that, but we can't get people to get on the back of the trucks we have already. So
That's what I'm
And
saying.
that's
You're
why
not gonna
Dell
find-
mentioned the side tipping truck, because it can't be
Yeah.
operated with one person.
Yeah.
Because it's got a mechanical arm.
Right.
We would still keep a helper, just so that we'd be able to move through the routes efficiently, but you'd still need to reduce the number of stops on the route from in excess of 900 down to below 600.
That is a excellent option. That's something that we've seen down in Kissimmee, that they operate very well with one driver with the and it's got a lot of safety protocols built into it with the cameras and in the whole 9. But we'll talk about that later on. But I think at least we're at a discussion point that where we need to be able to provide some solutions to the community.
Any further questions? Thank you. Go on, Mr. McMillan.
All right, and just to let everyone know, yes, we are actively providing backup information for all the options for that later discussion, including looking at route efficiencies and things like that. Sorry. Okay. All right, so sanitation personnel, that admin assistant was removed. But our staffing would remain the same. Again, we haven't actually met that full staffing level since I've been here. I am very interested to see what it would be like to have all of the staff positions filled with regular and reliable people, but hopefully we get there soon. We're trying every day. Our capital budget, as far as I remember, was untouched. This is something, or was it? I don't remember. That was touched. Okay. We were modeling an 8% increase in residential, or I'm sorry, a 7% increase in residential and an 8% increase in commercial. And we were fairly close with that. So some minor adjustments had to be made. Or major.
The adjustment to all the accounts.
To some of our expenses, so capital and potentially some other areas.
So it had to reduce.
Okay, you was at 280, went down to 150.
We were 401, we're 280 capital now.
Oh, okay.
Short on reserves.
And we've looked at, again, different purchasing methods for vehicles as opposed to an outright purchase, potentially financing or leasing. We again, just kind of addressing the nature of our fleet and the nature of the business.
I want to clarify something. I know that everybody might know this, but Unit 30 is a backup vehicle, so it's not in active service. I don't want you thinking that we got a 17-year-old vehicle out there every day.
Correct.
But what Dell's proposing to do is replace the primary, and the primary would then become the replacement Unit 30.
Okay.
So,
I'm looking more on that proposed, public work, debt service, 109,896, that will change, right?
yes, sir, that will come down based upon your previous direction.
That's that 150 plus that 9.
Yeah.
Oh,
Okay. Yeah. I'm on.
Okay.
I'm on that.
Any questions on the sanitation capital budget?
Go ahead and take this.
All right. Fleet Maintenance Department, which is housed under the Sanitation Department, sub-department. We conducted a surplus auction this year. That was exciting. We were able to implement a new GPS system. This is actually really pivotal across the entire fleet. It allows myself and our mechanics specifically to see active codes that come up on the vehicles for repairs. We can track fuel usage and consumption to project where we need to be for even DEF fluid to keep those orders kind of in line rather than just guessing. And again, we can utilize this software in comparison to other fleets of a similar makeup or even the same vehicles to see how we are running efficiency wise or fuel consumption wise. I believe the police department's able to do the same thing. Actually, everyone should be able to. And we're really trying to use this as a cornerstone of developing a real fleet maintenance program. Again, kind of scheduling those oil changes. We get the notifications through it based on either hours or mileage completed or time, however we want to set it up. Also maintaining safe driver habits, through access to the cameras on board or through notifications for harsh braking or turning or anything that we would want to see realistically. Again, we implemented a new iWorks module for a fleet inventory, which is important. Similar to our utilities department, we've got a lot of parts that we want to keep on hand. We want to know where we are financially in terms of what we need to purchase and what we need to plan for. So having that inventory module and being able to see when we're low on, oil after we've done oil changes or when we're low on oil filters or belts or something like that, it takes that manual effort of going out and counting something away from us, and it just puts us on a more automatic path for replenishment. Hopefully one day we can even get the automatic ordering option implemented. That'd be great. Again, just warehousing. We've done some housekeeping out there. We've created more space for ourselves to have inventory shelves that are being filled now with parts. We've actually partnered with Napa to get a full inventory based on the VINs of what we would need in a price catalog so that we can begin making those orders just, by calling off of a catalog as opposed to going out and pulling inventory from a truck. And then again, part of that component is maintaining a full stock of parts.
Hey, your automatic order that would require an approval, all right?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, it would send a notification of prepare the documents for
Right.
the order.
All right.
Send me the estimate, please, is what we're trying to get to.
Yes, sir.
If I can move here, operational changes. Again, we're looking at recording our KPIs. How often are we able to deliver those service items on time or within an interval? Again, utilizing the GPS system, we want to offer a higher level of preventative maintenance that's performed on time. Right now, that's something that we've addressed that we need to do to reduce our downtime with an aging fleet. And one of our major goals is to actually reduce that downtime. When we have downtime, that means we're not running out on the routes or able to complete, in terms of other departments, the services that we need to deliver.
How's your downtime trending?
Up,
Up?
yes,
Not good.
not good, no. As your fleet ages, obviously, they kind of cross. So
Okay.
older fleet, more downtime.
So is this gonna be across all our fleet, all the cars city on?
Yes. Yep. So, gosh, it was quite a few units, and I think we just have a few more to wrap up at City Hall, but yeah, we're almost done with the full transition.
That's including police?
Yeah.
Great.
And fire.
Wow, good deal.
And it was cheaper than Verizon.
Oh,
Sonny, could you help me? I'm sorry. So our fleet maintenance operating budget, and I will note that the vehicle maintenance lines do not live under fleet maintenance, but the operating budget was 17,000. We're looking at increasing that to 24. We've got some training. Obviously, ASC certifications are important. We've got some newer vehicles. They've got a lot more computerization in them. We needed people who've got some understanding in how to diagnose like a DPF system or an exhaust system. You know, there could be nothing wrong with the truck, but if a sensor's going bad, we're driving 5 miles an hour, not able to drive at all. And having someone know how to plug in the computer and read what it's telling us is very important. And to be able to say, hey, you know, we got to send this up to Jacksonville. We can't fix it right here. That's, you know, that basic knowledge, or I'd say advanced mechanical knowledge is something that we want to have with our fleet. Just mostly, you know, small tools, training and professional services are what we're looking at increasing within the fleet maintenance budget. Fleet maintenance personnel, we're requesting an additional mechanic. And right now it's heavy maintenance is physically heavy. We've got a lot of, you know, cylinders that weigh several hundred pounds. And if we've got, you know, one person who's out, we've got to schedule those events to happen when we've got the coverage or the equipment. We don't want people working on some of these vehicles or equipment alone, or if we've got to make a recovery at the landfill or something like that. Again, 2 people is great, but we kind of have to drop everything we're doing to accommodate those. So if we've got increased downtime on our fleet and we've got a queue of vehicles that are waiting for not parts, but maintenance to happen or repairs to happen, having some person who can stay when the other 2 people are occupied, or even have a 3rd person to help, that's important to us. So I think in the justification as well, you'll see that there's a recommended amount of, I guess, service tech to vehicle ratio. We're just a little bit behind that in that curve, and that 3rd person would put us at a more manageable level for those preventative maintenances, and just vehicle to personnel ratio.
So three mechanics. So you're just adding one.
We're adding
Your
one,
net-
correct.
your net- Your overall is 3, the request is just 1.
Yeah,
not 4.
currently we have 2, and we're just looking to increase that
Right.
to 3.
So. And that's across, you also have like the lawn equipment and all that stuff and.
So yes, for
and-
small repairs, for some of the major issues, we look at contracting those out and then maintaining that budget within the department that owns the equipment specifically. But, you know, if we've got a belt that needs to be replaced real quick, or to change a tire or something, that's what they're doing.
But the primary stuff is the production vehicles that go out and service.
Correct. You know,
Okay.
sanitation trucks,
Yes, sir. Okay.
But how many techs do you have?
2,
So the mechanic and the tech is the same person?
correct.
Are they ASC certified?
One of them is currently going through SE certification. The other one was previously. He needs to update those. And part of our training budget is to re-update or increase, depending on which person you're talking about.
Are they supposed to be ASC certified, working on government vehicles?
To my knowledge, you don't necessarily have to. We want them to strongly. Just liability. We want knowledgeable people working on a $500,000 piece of equipment. So,
That's why I'm asking that question. I just want to know if that required or behind, you know.
I mean,
No.
there's certain certifications. If we wanted to work on fire equipment vehicles, you need EBT training, which is kind of a milestone for heavy equipment mechanics. That's not something we're ready to take on just yet. We need to get to baseline. We need to crawl before we can run.
So question on for the ones under warranty that that's not a problem, but until they go off warranty, that's when our guys really dive in and do the major work.
Or send it off to someplace that needs to, correct?
Okay.
The majority of our fleet is off warranty due to its age.
Right, I'm just thinking some of the fleet still have like life and they, in terms of the value that they have in terms of the appraisal value of the vehicle. And I'm thinking that, you know, if you have, I guess, a person who is not certified, working on something that you certainly don't want them guess working on.
Correct. And for warranty purposes, yes, you do need certified people,
And
but
having the right equipment.
yes,
So you got the right equipment and the right.
yes. Any questions on personnel? All right, moving on to. Sorry, Sunny, please, next slide. I think we're done. Well, I'm done.
Oh,
We're here. Right.
Making a note on fleet. There's something that wasn't incorporated in there that I intended to have in there this year. Your fleet department operates like an interdepartmental service fund.
Correct.
So their cost should be adequately split between the different departments and funds. And historically, it has not. So your sanitation fund has carried the full cost. So Dell actually modeled those. Miss Cardy and I just haven't had a chance to plug those in. So it'll have a minimal impact because the majority of the cost is the sanitation, but there is a small amount that needs to be charged to general fund and the other related departments. So just a note. Moving on to general admin, page 21.
big number.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it's pretty simple because there's just a few things I need to point out to you. This is kind of a catch-all category for some of the general administrative expenses. So I just want to note that we're increasing fireworks. That's based upon what happened this year. So unless directed otherwise, we have $40,000 in there. The cost this year came in just for the fireworks, a little over 20,000. The liability insurance, you'll see that middle of the page. It's showing a 78% increase, $201,000 over last year.
What was that?
Page 21.
Page 21.
Okay.
Yep. We are budgeting for the Blue Crab event seed money. You'll see that $50,000 there. And the building purchase, land purchase, that's that money that you set aside last year for acquisition of blighted or abandoned structures.
Right.
So we're keeping that there just in case we identify any of the properties that we need to pick up and mitigate that blight.
Well, we have money. We have monies in the ARPA for that too.
Yes, sir. Yeah. So the number that I reported y'all before was a total number, including both.
Oh, so we can't pull this out?
You could. I was just noting that the number that I told you at a previous meeting
Mhm.
was a total number, including this and
Oh.
ARPA. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah,
And we're gonna have ARPA, that's two more after this one. So if
Right.
you want to come back to this and direct us to reduce that, you can.
yeah, because that'll help us. I think that'll help us in the general.
Yeah. I would need to look to make sure that's not a restricted revenue
Okay.
related to code funds.
Okay.
We could double check that. Yeah. Gonna make a note, Ms. Cardy.
I do.
Okay. Moving on to Better Place. That's page 77. Again, I'm just trying to hit the high points. So if you have any specific questions, please interrupt me. That's the revenues. So flip to page 78. That 7 million, we've got a note to reduce that to 3 million now for the Public Works building. So that'll change on the revenue and the expenditure side of Better Place. As noted earlier, we have 151,000 and change budgeted for stormwater. And we have somewhere around 780, 800,000 budgeted for streets resurfacing.
How much?
Do you know the exact number, Ms. Cardy? Mine's
Yeah, 775,000,
775.
792.
792?
Sorry, 775,000.
Oh, so that goes along with that other, that we
Yes, sir. I think this version doesn't have the updated amount for Hank Bryan. It's showing 60, but we've increased that to 105. Yep. And the
that include the
FDO,
bathroom.
yes, sir.
Right.
The FDOT MSCOP, that stands for Municipal Small Family Outreach Program, St. John's Avenue. We have $159,000 budgeted. That's for the section from the railroad to Palm Avenue. The county's scope doesn't include the replacement of the sidewalks. So for a couple of years now, we've been leaving that there because we thought if you got a brand new road with brand new potable, you're probably gonna want the sidewalks to be replaced too. However, we don't know we're gonna need all that. So it's just a placeholder right now. 2 lines down from that is the city share for downtown streetscape. So that matched with, on the next page, we're showing 1.5 million from DOT. And then there's another transfer coming in from the CRA. So we're in excess of $2 million to finish that project downtown. And I'll just talk about some of the other notable grant projects that are in better place. You flip to page 79, you've got your price marking retrofit. They're just budgeting for approximately half of that cost this year because they're expecting it to take 2 years. PDBG cares COVID sidewalks, same thing. They're budgeting for 2.4 million out of the 5 million. And then the raise grant, since that will take us through 2028, we're hoping to have the agreement in place by the end of the calendar year. They're budgeting for $1 million of those grant funds to be spent. Are there any questions on Better Place?
Yeah. If we go to line item, I guess 88909. That's the CDBG cares COVID sidewalk derelict vessels removal. Like,
What page are you on, sir?
I'm sorry, on 79. That was on 79. I'm sorry.
Oh, big one.
Yeah, that would always jump out at me.
Where, help me out.
89 on
Yeah.
Yeah, so your staff is basically just showing half of the grant. They're being realistic in what they can actually spend within the fiscal year of Ms. Cardy's direction. So normally we just throw the whole grant amount in there knowing that we're not going to get it all done. At Ms. Cardy's direction, we're actually trying to show you a realistic total of what we'll actually spend. Okay. We can go over that. So if for some reason we get going and that you authorize $3 million worth of projects, the budget amendment would be embedded with the resolution for the authorization. But you technically have $5 million to spend.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Thank you for asking the question, so we could clarify how we're actually allocating those projects over the years. Moving on to ARPA, page 74. We're close. All right, and actually flip the 75, if you don't mind. So nothing's really changed here from what you previously allocated. As you know, we've been, I'm getting to it. Thank you. We've been fairly diligent, and as you make corrections and suggestions, we bring back the allocation for you. So the one thing, based upon your direction at the last budget workshop, we asked us to reconsider funding a program or a procurement coordinator out of the general fund, and we offered up the alternative that a program administrator under contract could be spent with ARPA and appropriation dollars specifically for a couple of these activities. And the 2 activities that we're targeting here are the affordable housing assistance and most likely the small business economic impact. So you're not really changing any category, but we are suggesting that we still go out and get that contract employee to help put those dollars on the street.
After 2 years,
Yes, sir.
Mhm.
2-year contract.
That wraps us up. If you got any questions or changes you'd like us, to incorporate.
I think I wanted to ask a question about the ARPA funding. I'm gonna get some pushback, I know. About the,
Well, and just,
about the, I don't see it, so it may have been pulled out. About the outdoor showers or whatever. Portable shower.
portable showers.
I thought that was full.
It was taken out, okay, all right, okay. All right, let's not wake it up.
That's, you just want to know whether it was pulled or not? Okay, yeah.
I,
we did.
I
It
didn't.
was pulled. I remember the discussion.
Oh. So the position, you're talking about, Mr. City Manager, the procurement, that's gonna help us move forward with getting all the ARPA stuff, in what
Those
we,
two categories.
categories to hit the street within the next 2 years.
Yeah, so with the change, we would title them an actual program coordinator, because we'd be drawing down the grants. One of their major tasks as being a coordinator or administrator of those programs would be procurement to support those expenditures. So, we appreciated you all considering the fact that we believe we need a procurement coordinator, but it was probably necessary with the cuts that we had to make this year to eliminate that position and just find another way to help alleviate some of those those tasks that are falling to the existing staff with the amount of grants and other federal dollars that we've received.
But that salary is.
It's coming out.
It won't show up as an actual executive or a regular salary. It will show up as a contract expense under one of these line items. Yeah,
From the ARPA funds. stuff.
Yes.
and appropriations.
So the next question is, when do you want our feedback on what was presented as far as additional adjustments?
You can give us any feedback right now. I did want to ask if you still wanted to hold the workshop tomorrow, or if you wanted to look out a week. To be fair to Ms. Carty, and the rest of the staff,
It's
You
not
know,
much time,
there's-
much time.
some corrections that need to happen to really give you a complete document. And I wouldn't mind, and I'm sure she wouldn't mind having an extra
Little
day
more
or two.
time, yeah.
I mean, as soon as you can give us the feedback,
Yeah, all right, that's a point.
We do have a short window though. I mean, so
We
you're
know.
gonna have to advertise a week and a half out from what's the September. So I would, if you were talking about having your final workshop to review the final budget, I wouldn't go past next week. If you're not gonna hold tomorrow's workshop.
Don't go past the 25th.
Correct.
we can get, your input.
Well, look at number 17 on there, that Main Street manager. What,
That's the CRA. I mean,
why did it, well, yeah, but it's in there.
Yeah, well,
Totally.
no, it's just still one of the total positions.
Yeah,
It's total
it's-
position. Yeah, even though it's a fund, the CRA is the funding source, potentially, if it happens. We'll see.
Oh, but why is it in there?
Because it's still a budgeted
It's still
position,
budgeted.
even though you guys said we haven't given final authorization for it. It's still in the budget you approved on Monday.
That's one of, that's one of them scenarios. It's up there. and it's funded.
Well, it's in the,
Projected budget.
well, it's in the projected, but that's what was,
We decided.
spoke
for-
about, but that doesn't necessarily mean it has to happen.
You all were fairly clear on Monday. We understand that you're not necessarily sure you want to move forward with either position or a hybrid. But it was approved with the budget. So it was tabled, correct, Sonny? And it's gonna show up at the next meeting, which is in October.
Correct. And pending more information as well, data.
But that position cannot be hired unless.
Right, unless we, correct,
Correct.
correct,
Yeah.
correct.
All right.
So I would like if
Just
there's,
got a date?
well, that, and if there's any additional direction, it's important we get it in a public workshop.
Mhm.
Oh, question. I was just thinking about, the people who a program like live where you work and, additional incentive for people who live where they work, like people who live or reinvest back in Palatka, who live here. I think we have a lot of people who live outside of Palatka that, and we talked about, we want to talk about exporting monies or whatever you want to say, but I think we need to really look at, people who live, in the city of Palatka and see what we can do to kind of help incentivize, maybe 2 or 3% more in terms of people who live here and work here. So, that's just one of my suggestions. I don't know how the commission would feel about that, but that's just one of my suggestions as in terms of trying to help people who live and work here.
Are we looking at that through CRA funding or general fund? We did have a,
The general fund.
okay, because we did have a CRA program, a live where you
Right.
work program. That's not been funded for years, but that was only if you resided in one,
Right.
or
It was
one of the, it's just TIF districts rather.
Live where you work.
Yeah.
And if it's not the increase in the whole, the base salary, then it could possibly be a stipend, whatever for the people. And then that could be given to them, at the end of the year or whatever. So that's just a suggestion. I don't know how everybody else feel about it.
That sounds good. But on that note, you sent out the draft for the city manager position, and I did notice in there, it said live in the city limits of Palatka. I don't think we want to restrict that. That's not a restriction now.
I think it was it was a preferred thing. It didn't say had to.
But he wanted feedback, so I forgot.
Yeah.
I would like to make a suggestion, but I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. Like. Mr. Griffith.
Ms. Thomas was gonna clarify that it says willing to locate, but
Yeah.
we can change the language. That's why I sent it out. We wanted feedback. from
Yeah,
everybody, so please.
I think we need to change.
I
that.
think we should encourage people living in it. Now, they may not, but I think we should encourage that. If we want people to invest in this community,
We got
people
people
that
that
are-
work here now, don't.
That's what we're trying to reach.
I know that, but we're trying to get there someday. We gotta start somewhere sort of thing.
And that's why I was just saying, Commissioner, if, that's why we want people to start reinvesting back in the city. If you know, it's another small incentive to say, if you live in the city limits of Palatka,
Doesn't mean you don't get, you know.
right,
Right.
we want to try to give an incentive to live here.
But we
Well-
can't find housing, so it's a challenge.
Yes.
It's a
There's
challenge.
housing and there's also vacant lots. And I mean,
But this,
there are,
it's,
to
it'll be
build
their, it'll be their option whether they
Right.
want to do it or not, but that 2 or 3, that 3%.
Right.
What I'm talking on now,
You talking about the position.
yes, the position, that's important, that,
Okay.
because the way it's worded, it's almost saying you must live in the city of Palatka.
saying it's preferred. It's not saying you.
Well, I say, well, okay, so
I think-
this commissioner say, I think we should
I think.
change the word,
I
the
think
wording.
prefer, because that doesn't necessarily mean you have to be,
Okay.
but prefer, it ain't say you must.
We need to give them
Yeah,
direction,
correct.
that's what I'm saying,
Correct.
that's because I think that's what we need to do, city manager.
I'm sorry.
Cause I saw it and I thought that were like, that could be a deterrent. We miss out on somebody good.
I think it's a
I
deterrent.
think,
I
I have
But if
a-
y'all don't feel that way.
Well, I would, okay.
This is with respect. I don't think that has anything to do with this particular that verbiage. I don't think that is I mean, we don't have to hash that out at this meeting.
You can't hear you, Commissioner.
So, Commissioners, I think we've heard enough to make some adjustments.
Okay.
To the marketing document. Myself, Ms. Thomas and Ms. Johnson will get together and we'll make it say preferred or encouraged, something to just say that, you know, the commission would like them to live within the city limits or at least in the unincorporated area. Does that sound okay?
Yes.
Putnam County.
Okay. We have one more item we wanted to bring to your attention. The original budget, getting tired here. The original budget was built off of, the legal budget, if you will, was built off of a base salary of $136,000 a year. That's the base salary. That's not the entire carrying cost, including benefits. We wanted to kind of talk to you about how we felt about having an in-house counsel. The current budget and decision unit that you have in front of you actually is built off of what is the base salary of this firm.
We meant to have it at 155, 145. I think we said 145,000, 148,000.
Yeah, I'm targeting 148 right now. So that's obviously a bit more. But I want to kind of yield the floor to Chief Shaw and Ms. Thomas. We had some discussion this morning. We just want to make sure everybody's still on the same page, because we need to bring this to resolution prior to the 31st, because she's leaving us
Oh, God.
for good.
Really, this time.
Final day.
Chief Shaw gotta say about it.
This time and that has been a test up till now. Now it's for real.
As you know, sir, the importance of legal in our field, it is extremely important, especially for timely manner on projects and liability issue. Being able to refer to our city attorney on a regular basis and having one in-house. I've been through both, and you've been here when we've had one in-house, had a contracted attorney. Not being able to utilize them and refer to them on a regular basis, it is extremely important, especially in our field, because what we found is before our litigation for liability issues and lawsuits was extremely high when we didn't have the attorney in-house. Being able to run things through the attorney has helped us limit our liability down quite a bit. I can tell you, when I first started as chief, I attended 3 mitigations. I haven't attended any since we had an attorney in-house. It's a pay now or pay later thing, in my opinion. We have reduced a lot of our liability just being able to refer to her legal expertise. And I think that's very important when it comes to the things we deal with on a day-to-day basis within the city.
I have been here 3 years, more like 3.5 years at this point. And although I was hired to be on a limited basis, I have been here like completely full-time. And the salary that I'm being paid now, if I was here in the office 40, 60 hours a week, then salary would have to be doubled.
Miss Thomas, would you please use the handheld?
All right, is that better, son? Ms. Krantz?
Miss Caskell hasn't said yet, but I'm sure it is.
Okay, thank you. And so the salary that I have been being paid for the last 3 years is a mere portion of what a full-time in-house attorney would require. I think that I have received many comments from the staff, from the directors, about how much they appreciate me being available at all times to answer them, weekends, nights, whatever. And so I think that that's a move that the city of Palatka needs to make at this time. I think that that is an excellent suggestion. And the price point that is being given is like pretty standard for a full-time city attorney in-house. Thank you.
So
And
do we owe you any
Yes,
money?
you do.
And we've actually apparently saved money on the salary over the last 3.5 years.
We just wanted to bring that to your
Yeah.
attention. It changed since the last version, and we had a staff meeting this morning, and they were all very vocal about it. So I wanted them to be able to speak to it.
Right, and we also looked at it fiscally, given the fact that Ms. Thomas has been here, like, make sure you've been here part-time, looking at the amount that you were being compensated on a part-time basis. If you were full-time, it would be close to the 144 amount. 148.
Uh,
Just sharing.
Since we sharing, Miss Val, I know, but Miss Val has been on, I say she's been on label of part-time, but she's been here full-time. Even when she's not here in person, she's still receiving stuff through email, returning things in a timely manner. We send stuff out that we get from attorneys all the time, and she sends it right back, whether she's here or not. So she's not, maybe in person, she's part-time, but she's full-time in her production and work.
I think we might need to look in the budget and see how we can give her a stipend.
Well, she definitely is not staying though. You heard that?
We could figure out a way to afford it for another, what, 11 days?
And mom, yeah, right? 11 days more.
And with all that said, do you want us to come to any consensus about anything?
No, if you have no further direction, we're going to say that our suggestion stands. And I'd just like to say thank you to all the department heads, Ms. Cardy. I've been telling everybody she's been trying to do something that takes 3 months and 3 weeks. You're going to have a balanced budget. I feel really good about it. And I really appreciate the commission giving us clear direction. And I hope you guys appreciate it as well.
Mr. Griffith, Madam Mayor, what was the direction about tomorrow's workshop? We kind of got talking about legal.
Good point. Would y'all like to reschedule for next week? Would you like us to make an effort to get it together tomorrow by 3? We could try.
Well, I mean, we say we were gonna, certain things we were gonna pull out and do all those things, right? So, and add whatever, so, whatever
I think while we're doing it, let's go ahead and knock it out.
right, what's the recommendation is to go ahead and, we need to just go ahead and knock it out, right? Go ahead.
Commissioner McCaskill said next week.
Okay, go ahead, Commissioner McCaskill. Next week, okay. Anybody else? What's the preference? Tomorrow or next week?
I just gave you mine.
I would
Okay,
say,
I know,
was
looking.
I say knock it out.
What you say?
I think we should get it done. But is that reasonable for staff? That's my question.
So if you want to have your workshop tomorrow, I will tell you that we will still be reviewing it next week. And I may add it as an administrative report on the 24th agenda if we discover anything in our final review that needs to be noted publicly.
Is that something you're all comfortable with?
Work for you?
Yeah.
Okay.
So your plan is that, I'm gonna go ahead and try to write.
You're going to be busy tomorrow morning.
Yeah,
Gonna be
that makes
running
more
hot.
sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
We
Running around.
wrap it up, we do it, everything's balanced, we consider anything that we stumbled on today. We should be able to do that. And so our goal will be to release a balanced budget back to commissioners tomorrow.
Assuming we don't see any major errors that we need
Okay.
to bring to their attention. Yes. Yep.
Good, thank you.
Yes.
Commissioner McCaskill is saying next week it is, I think she meant, is it reasonable for staff tomorrow? I do not want anything rushed in capital letters.
Commissioner McCaskill, it's reasonable. We can get it at about 99%. Ms. Cardy and I just need to look through line item by line item one final time after you guys are done. So we could still do that next week.
Yeah.
But thank you for the consideration.
With that said, anything else? Or do we have a motion to adjourn?